Chapter 799. In Central State City. Not only did the powerful families know about the destruction of the Duanmu clan, even the common people of the various clans knew about it. Almost everyone in the streets and alleys were talking about this matter. In the next few days, or at least for the next half a month, this would be the most explosive news. In the streets and alleys, in the tea houses and wine shops, martial artists of various clans could be seen everywhere. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and discussed with shock and sorrow. The Duanmu clan is a clan with a long history. They control almost half of the medicinal herbs business in Central State. How could they be gone just like that? Yes, I heard about it too. It's unbelievable. If I had the strength of the heavenly origin realm, I would really want to fly to Greenwood City to take a look. Isn't the Duanmu clan's master a spirit-refining realm transcendent expert? Could it be that he couldn't withstand it? Don't you know? The Duanmu clan's master has mysteriously disappeared. No one has found his body. I reckon that the Duanmu clan's master has most likely been killed. There's news from Greenwood City that someone saw Duanmu Huang fighting with an expert that night. Heavens! If that's true, then Duanmu Huang is most likely dead. Otherwise, it's impossible for there to be no news about him. Duanmu Huang is a transcendent expert who has been famous for a long time. In the entire Central State, there are only a handful of people who can kill him, right? Yes. I heard that the masters of the other 2 clans could at most fight to a draw with Duanmu Huang. There are rumors that the expert who killed Duanmu Huang is a supreme martial artist of the primordial soul realm. Even a supreme martial artist made a move? My dear mother, who did the Duanmu clan offend? It can't be the emperor. Hey, do you want to die? How dare you criticize the emperor? Moreover, the emperor is a just and impartial leader of the human race. How could he make a move against Duanmu Huang? There are only 2 or 3 supreme martial artists of the primordial soul realm in the world. Who else could it be other than the emperor? Similar conversations and discussions were taking place in the various cities of the central continent. Most of the people who did not know the truth believed in the rumors. They believed that the murderer who killed Duanmu Huang and destroyed the Duanmu family was a supreme primordial spirit cultivator. After all, in everyone's opinion, only a primordial soul supremacy would have such terrifying strength to kill Duanmu Huang and destroy the Duanmu clan overnight. The real culprit, Ji Tianxing, had also become a supreme primordial soul stage cultivator. He was worshipped and praised by millions of martial artists and commoners. Of course, the remaining forces of the Duanmu family that had escaped the net also hated Ji Tianxing to the core. These people didn't dare to seek revenge for the Duanmu clan, so they could only use the most vicious words to curse and spit at him. Achoo! In Tianxing Palace, Ji Tianxing, who was recuperating in a secret chamber, suddenly sneezed. Damn it, I've been sneezing for the past 2 days. Someone must be cursing me behind my back. He rubbed his nose and muttered angrily. He frowned. That night 3 days ago, he had exhausted all his strength and used all his means to finally kill Duanmu Huang. Before many experts arrived, he quietly left the battlefield. Then he returned to the temporary stronghold in the Mangu forest and met up with Yen, Qianyu, and the White Ape. The Beast King had already completed his task and returned to the temporary stronghold. Everyone was nervous and worried, anxiously waiting for his return. Seeing that he had returned alive, the Beast King, Yin, and the 3 spirit beasts were wild with joy and excitement. At that time, Ji Tianxing was exhausted and didn't even have the strength to fly. The Beast King was also seriously injured. He was covered in wounds and almost turned into a bloody man. Therefore, Ji Tianxing, the Beast King, and Yen rode on Qianyu and the little black dragon and quickly left the Mangu forest. They didn't return to the central continent city until the evening of the day before yesterday. The Beast King was seriously injured. After returning to the city, he hurried back to the breeze yard with the White Ape to heal himself. Ji Tianxing didn't dare to waste any time. He took Yen, Qianyu, and the little black dragon back to the Tianxing Palace to heal himself. He had been healing himself in the secret chamber for 2 days and 2 nights. During these 2 days, he relied on the Kenshin bloodline, the ultimate sword body, and the greenwood spirit body to heal himself. He also consumed 20,000 spiritual stones worth of Dan beads. Finally, he recovered more than half of his physical injuries. However, his soul was also seriously injured. It was very difficult for him to recover. He needed a long time to heal himself. After all, the herbs to heal the soul were the rarest and rarest. Fortunately, he had a nirvana crystal in his head. It had been strengthening and protecting his soul for nearly a year. During these 2 days of closed-door cultivation, other than healing his injuries, he had also done something extremely important. He broke through the shackles and reached the 7th level of Sky Origin stage in the desperate fight with Duanmu Huang. In this operation, besides the destruction of the Duanmu clan, this was his second biggest gain. It was a great surprise. He had been stuck at the peak of the 6th level of Sky Origin stage. He had to find an opportunity to break through. The fight with Duanmu Huang, who was in the soul refining stage, was an extremely dangerous test of life and death. It was an opportunity to obtain treasures and martial arts inheritance. Dangerous battles and trials of life and death were also opportunities. Ji Tianxing was the #1 genius of the human race. He was very talented in martial arts. He seized the opportunity in the fight. When he was seriously injured and in a dangerous situation, he tried to operate the 9th level of the sword heart to refine his heart. He succeeded. That was why he could break through to the next level. Now that he had reached the 7th level of Sky Origin stage, he needed to concentrate on the 9th level of the sword heart to refine the sword heart. However, he had something on his mind. He decided to stop cultivating for the time being. Phew! President Jitian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and slowly stopped his cultivation. I have been cultivating in seclusion for 2 days. It has been 3 days. The news should have spread out by now. This thought flashed through his mind. He pondered for a moment, then got up and left the secret room. Anyway, he had recovered a lot from his injuries. It wouldn't affect his movement. He decided to find Yun Yao and ask about the situation outside. When he walked out of the secret room, he saw several people standing at the door. Dressed in a long white dress, Yun Yao's face was as calm as water. Her eyes were filled with deep worry as she stared fixedly at him. Long Yun Xiao, who was wearing a golden robe, looked serious. He was waiting quietly. Qian Yu, Yin, and the little black dragon were waiting for him at the door. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, then he revealed a face full of smiles. Yun Yao looked at him from head to toe. Seeing that he was safe and sound and that his injuries had recovered a lot, she let out a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Tianxing, you are finally out. It's great that you are fine. She walked up to him. Ji Tianxing nodded with a smile and said to her softly, Yao Yao, don't worry. I told you I would be fine. After saying that, he turned his head and glanced at Long Yun Xiao. He secretly sent a voice transmission to Yun Yao. Yao Yao, does the emperor already know that I killed Duanmu Huang? Yun Yao's expression did not change, but she secretly replied, perhaps he has guessed it, but I did not reveal any information. At this moment, Long Yun Xiao walked over to the two of them. His voice was filled with concern as he asked, Tianxing, how are your injuries? Ji Tianxing nodded with a smile and said, thank you for your concern, Emperor. My injuries are fine now. Long Yun Xiao nodded and hesitated for a while. Then he asked tentatively, Tianxing, did you really do that? Obviously, he was shocked and incredulous when he heard the news of the Duanmu family's destruction. After he calmed down, he thought about it carefully and guessed that it was Ji Tianxing who did it. Chapter 800. Long Yun Xiao could not understand. Ji Tianxing was only at ethereal stage. How could he kill Duanmu Huang who was at soul-tempering stage? Therefore, he hurried to Tianxing Palace and stood outside the secret chamber for an entire day. He wanted to ask Chen Xiaobei in person. However, he looked at Ji Tianxing expectantly. Ji Tianxing pretended to be confused and asked, what is it? I don't quite understand what you mean. Long Yun Xiao smiled when he saw Chen Xiaobei's reaction. Hee, since you are pretending to be confused in front of me, then you must have done it. That's right. Not only Ji Tianxing but Yun Yao, Yin, and the others were also stunned. Their expressions became a little strange. Ji Tianxing glared at Long Yunxiao and muttered, "Hey, what are you talking about? Don't think that you can slander others just because you are the emperor. Anyway, that matter has nothing to do with me. No matter what you say, I will not admit it." Long Yunxiao's smile became more and more playful. He nodded and said, "All right, since you are not willing to admit it, then when the emperor asks about this matter, I will tell him exactly what you said." Long Yunxiao, are you trying to set me up? After the Duanmu family was destroyed, there were only two ancient families left in the human race. This was the result that the imperial court did not want to see. Everyone knew what kind of reaction the emperor would have when he found out about this. Because of this, Ji Tianxing would never admit that he killed Duanmu Huang. Yun Zhongqi would never admit that it was Cloud's spirit palace that destroyed the Duanmu family. Anyway, their plan was very thorough and they did not leave any evidence behind. Even if the imperial court guessed that it was them who did it, as long as there was no conclusive evidence, they could only turn a blind eye. If Long Yunxiao told Ji Tianxing's words to the emperor, it would be like revealing 300 tales of silver here. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was frustrated and helpless, Long Yunxiao suddenly laughed out loud. "You brat, you always make this monarch feel depressed. This time, this monarch can finally return the favor." He thought so in his heart, feeling rather pleased. After all, Ji Tianxing had done such an earth-shattering thing. It could be said that he had created an unprecedented miracle. The gap between him and Long Yunxiao was getting bigger and bigger. He had completely surpassed Long Yunxiao. Being able to provoke him verbally was also a delightful thing. However, Long Yunxiao didn't get to be complacent for long before he knew the consequences. Ji Tianxing and his wife, Ji Tianxing and his fiancée Yun Yao, junior brother Yen, and the two spirit beasts were all glaring at Long Yunxiao angrily. Everyone's gazes harbored malicious intentions, and they all had a hostile attitude. Long Yunxiao quickly retracted his smile and resumed his expressionless and calm demeanor. His tone was solemn as he said, "All right, since you're fine, Tianxing, this monarch is relieved. Take your time to chat. I still have to return to the imperial court to report to the emperor." After saying that, he waved his hand at everyone and left Tianxing Palace as if he was escaping. There was no other way. If he continued to stay, he would definitely incur the wrath of the crowd and be besieged by them. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. Leaving was the best plan. After Long Yunxiao left, Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and the others looked at each other and smiled, revealing a mocking expression. Qian Yu chuckled proudly and muttered, "The emperor is such a fool. He actually wants to find an opportunity to attack old Ji? Hee, with us here, he has no chance. Let's go. Let's talk in the study." Ji Tianxing held Yun Yao's hand, led Yen, and the two spirit beasts out of the secret room and walked to the study. After arriving at the study, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao took their seats. Without waiting for Ji Tianxing to ask, Yun Yao took the initiative to say, "Tianxing, I contacted my father yesterday. He is in a very good mood and is very excited. Now that the Duanmu family has been destroyed, the predicament of Cloud's spirit palace has been resolved. He can finally breathe a sigh of relief. No one would have thought that this operation would go so smoothly." He was also quite surprised. "You are the biggest contributor to this operation. My father said that he can fulfill his promise to you at any time. He also said that as long as your father agrees on the wedding date with them, he will set up a 10-mile-long corridor and tens of thousands of people outside Cloud's Spirit Palace to welcome you into Cloud's Spirit Palace." Speaking of this matter, Yun Yao was no longer as shy as before. Her expression remained normal, but a hint of shyness flashed in her eyes, and her sparkling earlobes were a little red. Ji Tianxing sat beside her and looked at her beautiful cheeks and sparkling earlobes. He was quite moved. If it wasn't for Yenner, Qian Yu, and the little black dragon, he would have kissed Yun Yao. However, he controlled himself and nodded with a smile. Now that the Duanmu family has been destroyed, the world is at peace. I sent someone to send the marriage contract back to the Tianjin region. Father will receive it soon. I really hope that father can come to Central State soon and discuss this matter with uncle and auntie. We can set the wedding date as soon as possible. That way, I can marry you as soon as possible. Yun Yao nodded and slightly lowered her head. She continued, other than these words, my father also told me to tell you that you only need to focus on recovering from your injuries. After the Duanmu family is destroyed, Cloud's Spirit Palace will take care of everything. They will definitely pull out the roots and not leave behind any future troubles. According to my father's estimates, the destruction of the Duanmu family will cause Central State to be in chaos for a few months to half a year. However, he has already made arrangements and preparations. He will soon be able to control the situation and stabilize Central State. At most, in half a year, Cloud's Spirit Palace and the many forces under the Yun family will wipe out the remnants of the Duanmu family. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a smile, that's good. I'm not worried about uncle. After a moment of silence, he thought of something and asked Yun Yao, by the way, Yao Yao, can you help me ask uncle if there are any soul-refining cultivators in the Duanmu family other than Duanmu Huang? I feel that the destruction of the Duanmu family was unexpectedly smooth. For an ancient family like the Duanmu family, Duanmu Huang should not be the only soul-refining cultivator, right? However, when I killed Duanmu Huang, there was no other soul-refining cultivator in the Duanmu family. In the entire Duanmu family, there were only a few elders and guards in the 7th or 8th level of Sky Origin stage who were not too bad. Speaking of this, Yun Yao's expression changed slightly. She said in a serious tone, Tianxing, this is the last thing my father wanted me to tell you. You guessed right. The Duanmu family does have 2 soul-refining cultivators. Other than Duanmu Huang, there is another soul-refining cultivator around the 6th level. He is the great elder of the Duanmu family, Duanmu Peng. This person has not shown his face for 60 years. It is said that he went to the great swamp of the southern wasteland to explore the remains of the primordial spirit's supreme cultivator. He is looking for a breakthrough in a desperate situation. Hearing this news, Ji Tianxing frowned and his expression became serious. As expected, I knew it. How can a family that has been passed down for thousands of years only have one soul-refining cultivator? I didn't expect the great elder of the Duanmu family to be even stronger than Duanmu Huang. Yun Yao nodded and said with a serious expression, my father said that 60 years ago, Duanmu Peng was already in the 6th level of soul-refining cultivator. Now that 60 years have passed, even my father doesn't know what realm his strength has reached. My grandfather traveled in the great swamp of the southern wasteland for over 20 years and did not meet Duanmu Peng. He also did not get any information about him. Maybe Duanmu Peng is already dead. Maybe he got some lucky chance and became even stronger. These are all hard to say. You only need to know about this matter. You don't need to worry too much. Ji Tianxing obviously knew that Yun Yao said this to comfort him. No matter how dangerous the great swamp of the southern wasteland was, a 6th-level soul-refining cultivator would not die so easily. It was very likely that Duanmu Peng was still alive. It was just that he was delayed by something, so he did not appear for so many years. But once Duanmu Peng left the great swamp of the southern wasteland and found out that the Duanmu family was destroyed, he would go crazy with rage. He would definitely take revenge for the Duanmu family. At that time, Ji Tianxing and Cloud's Spirit Palace would be in danger and suffer from Duanmu Peng's cruel revenge. Chapter 801. South of the Central State, inside the sky-connecting mountain range. On top of the sky-connecting peak, the human imperial court loomed in the clouds. It was as glorious and divine as always. It was evening now. The setting sun shone down and the golden sunlight shone on the sea of clouds on top of the mountain. It made the imperial court look auspicious and colorful. Inside a majestic palace deep inside the imperial court, there were many guards wearing armor and carrying swords. The atmosphere was solemn and stern. This palace, called the Heavenly Dragon Palace, was the 3rd Prince Long Ziqian's bedroom. In a secret chamber inside the Heavenly Dragon Palace, the light was dim and the spiritual qi was abundant. The floor and walls were decorated with countless rare and precious gems. This secret chamber was protected by a soul-level formation. The abundant spiritual chi formed clouds and condensed into spiritual liquid. It filled the spiritual liquid pool in the corner of the secret chamber. In comparison, this secret chamber was as luxurious as the training room in the Duanmu Huang. It was just smaller in size. At this moment, the third prince with a naked upper body and a heavenly dragon gold crown on his head was sitting cross-legged in the spiritual liquid pool. He was cultivating silently. Since 2 months ago, he had been staying in this secret chamber in the heavenly dragon palace. He had been cultivating in seclusion day and night to break through to the refined soul stage. After all, he was already half a step into the refined soul stage. He was eager to reach the refined soul stage. The 9th level of the heavenly origin stage was only 1 step away from the first level of the refined soul stage. The 9th level of the heavenly origin stage represented the limit of a martial artist's body. Elite warriors of the refined soul stage had surpassed ordinary martial artists. They were extraordinary warriors who had reached another profound level. Only by reaching the refined soul stage could one become famous in the world and become a great warrior respected by all martial artists. Only elite warriors of the refined soul stage could roam the Tian Xian land, step into the eastern sea, explore the forbidden area of the southern desolate swamp, explore the mysteries of heaven and earth, and pursue the supreme martial arts. To the third prince, only by reaching the refined soul stage as soon as possible could he widen the gap between him and the other princes. Once he reached the refined soul stage, not only would his status reach the peak, he would also control more power. However, how could it be so easy to break through the shackles between the heavenly origin stage and the refined soul stage? 95% of heavenly origin stage elite warriors could not break through to the refined soul stage in their lifetime. Even if those geniuses could break through the shackles, it would take at least 10 years, and at most 30 to 50 years of bitter cultivation. The third prince had only been cultivating in seclusion for 2 months and had not even found the trick to breaking through the shackles. At this moment, a dull bell rang outside the door of the secret chamber, and the stone door lit up with a dazzling 5-colored light. Someone was knocking on the door of the secret chamber. Before the third prince went into seclusion, he had ordered that unless something extremely important happened, no one was to disturb him. What was an extremely important matter? For example, the death of the emperor, the death of the empress, the premature death of the son of heaven, or the death of the imperial tutor. Only matters of this level could be considered extremely important. The third prince was immediately awakened. He quickly stopped his cultivation and opened his eyes. Shwa! When he opened his eyes, his red phoenix eyes flashed with a sharp light, and his entire body erupted with a dignified and domineering aura. He glanced at the shining stone door and frowned. He whispered, "He actually forced his way in? Could it be that Long Yunxiao is dead?" As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand and shot out a ray of 5-colored brilliance into the secret chamber's stone door. Instantly, the heavy stone door opened with a rumbling sound. A burly young man of about 16 or 17 years old with a head full of red hair quickly stepped into the secret chamber. This young man's eyes were crimson red, and his entire body emitted a demonic aura. He was the third prince's adopted son, Tuoba Rui. Tuoba Rui walked into the secret chamber with a solemn expression. He came to the side of the spiritual liquid pool and bowed respectfully. "Father, I have important news to report. I had no choice but to knock on the door." When the third prince saw his solemn and anxious expression, he instantly had a bad premonition. He frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Why are you in such a panic?" Tuoba Rui quickly replied in a deep voice, "Father, 3 nights ago, the Duanmu residence was suddenly attacked by a large group of experts. It was razed to the ground overnight. Thousands of people from the Duanmu family were killed, and only a few dozen managed to escape. Duanmu Huang was fighting with a mysterious expert. In the end, no one knew where he went. No one knew if he was alive or dead." When the third prince heard the news from Tuoba Rui, his expression changed drastically, and his pupils shrank. All the muscles in his body instantly tightened, and his fists were clenched so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. His expression became gloomy and ferocious. The Duanmu family was destroyed overnight? Duanmu Huang was also killed. Who was it? Who had the guts to cause such a huge disaster? The third prince growled coldly. It was obvious that he was extremely shocked and furious. The Duanmu family and the Murong family were under his control, and they were his most powerful trump card. They could be said to be his left and right arms, and they were also his capital to complete his great ambitions. Now his left arm was suddenly chopped off. How could he not be furious? Tuoba Rue saw that the third prince was on the verge of going crazy. After a moment of silence, he cupped his hands and said, "Father, the news from Greenwood City said that someone saw the mysterious expert fighting with Duanmu Huang. Countless people said that it was a primordial soul supremacy." Bullshit. The third prince actually swore for the first time. Tuoba Rui knew very well that his foster father had always been shrewd. Even if a mountain collapsed in front of him, his expression would not change. However, he did not expect his foster father to be so furious that he even swore. This was the first time he heard it. This also made him understand how furious his foster father was. The third prince took a deep breath and gradually calmed down. He said with a cold and dignified tone, "Currently, on the Tianxian continent, there are only 2 or 3 primordial soul supremacies. The monarch would never attack Duanmu Huang. The one from the monarch mansion has disappeared for 200 years. It is impossible for him to suddenly attack. The murderer is at most a spiritualist. Immediately send people to investigate. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you must find the murderer." The third prince's tone was as cold as ice. His voice was powerful and contained an unquestionable dignity. Tuoba Rui did not dare to talk nonsense. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "Yes, sir." Then he turned around and left the secret room. The third prince pondered for a long time with a gloomy expression. His expression changed several times before he finally calmed down. 2 days passed quickly. Ji Tianxing had been staying in Tianxing Palace. He was silently healing his injuries in his room and consolidating his martial arts foundation. Early in the morning, Yan suddenly came to the door and reported a piece of news. "Senior brother Tianxing, the guard from the monarch mansion, just sent a message. Divine Mentor Blackfeather has summoned you for a meeting." Hearing Yan Er's words, Ji Tianxing suddenly woke up. He quickly ended his cultivation and walked out of the room. He looked at Yan Er and asked, "Divine Mentor Blackfeather summoned me? Did the guard say what it was about?" Yan Er shook his head, indicating that he did not know. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a while. He guessed the answer in his heart. He quickly left Tianxing Palace and flew toward Blackfeather Palace. Chapter 802. When Ji Tianxing arrived at the Blackfeather Palace, he saw that there were already 3 people in the main hall. The black-robed powerhouse sitting in the middle of the hall was none other than Divine Master Blackfeather. 10 steps away from him, 2 young emperors stood side by side. They were Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao. Ji Tianxing immediately understood what was going on. They had also received Divine Master Blackfeather's summons and hurried over. Ji Tianxing walked into the main hall and stood beside Yun Yao. He bowed to Divine Master Blackfeather and said, "Ji Tianxing greets Divine Master Blackfeather." Divine Master Blackfeather nodded slightly and said calmly, "Since everyone is here, I'll announce something. Over the past few days, I've done a lot of research and investigation, and I've finally gained something. The matter is starting to take shape. I'm sure that the demonic goo was created by the ancient fiend emperor. Its vitality is extremely strong, and it must be burned to ashes with the extreme yang true fire before it can be completely killed. When the demonic goo grows to a certain extent, it will split and produce new demonic goo to infect others. The more demonic goo there are, the more powerful it will be, and the faster the ancient fiend emperor will be able to increase his strength. Moreover, the demonic goo will definitely devour the person's flesh and soul, and the person will die within a month. Even if the demonic goo is forcefully removed from the person's body, the person will die within 3 days. The demonic goo in Tang Shuqing's body was removed by Ji Tianxing, and he died after being unconscious for 3 days. Ji Tianxing, Long Yunxiao, and Yun Yao's expressions turned grave when they heard what Divine Master Blackfeather said. It's so difficult to deal with? You'll definitely die after being hit by the demonic goo? This demonic goo is already very difficult to deal with, and it can split and regenerate? The ancient fiend emperor deserves to die. How dare he spread such vicious demonic goo? What is he trying to do? Divine Master Blackfeather continued, not only are there demons in Zhongzhou City disguised as humans and demons, spreading demonic goo everywhere. There are also demons in the hundreds of cities in Zhongzhou, and they're spreading demonic goo everywhere. The situation was getting more and more serious, and it was getting out of hand. Even if the lords of the cities do their best to investigate and rescue, they can't stop the spread of the demonic parasites. Ji Tianxing frowned and said in a grave tone, the demon race is actually so rampant? If this continues, won't the central continent fall into chaos? That's right. Divine Master Heiyu nodded and said with a solemn expression, one of the goals of the ancient demon emperor is to plunge the middle region into chaos and panic. Not only did it want to use the demonic goo to quickly recover its strength, but it also wanted to use the demonic goo to create chaos and take revenge on the humans and demons. 1,000 years ago, the ancient Diablo demon emperor had done the same thing. It used the demonic goo to create a terrible disaster, causing tens of millions of warriors and civilians to die. Hundreds of cities were covered in blood and corpses were everywhere. Back then, its strength had reached the primordial soul realm and above, making it almost unstoppable. It had created that monstrous bloody disaster, causing the people of both the human and demon races to be filled with resentment. They hated the devil race to the bone. Now that the ancient Diablo demon emperor had been suppressed for 1,000 years, its vitality was greatly damaged, and its strength was extremely weak. However, it had already escaped back to its nest in the northern desert for almost a year. With the help of the demonic goo to recover its strength, it should have regained the strength of the soul refinement realm by now. Moreover, the demonic goo it created this time is even more difficult to deal with than the demonic goo from 1,000 years ago. I have yet to think of any effective way to deal with it. Divine Master Heiyu's words made Ji Tianxing and the other two's hearts sink. With the lesson of the disaster from 1,000 years ago, the three of them had a premonition that the ancient Diablo demon emperor would definitely create an even more earth-shattering and bloody disaster this time. However, even Divine Master Heiyu, a powerful soul refinement cultivator, was helpless against the ancient Diablo demon emperor's scheme. They were filled with grief, anger, and helplessness. Seeing that the three of them were silent with a heavy heart, Divine Master Blackfeather continued, I've also found out that in order to ensure the success of the demonic goo plan, not only did the ancient diabolical emperor send a large number of demon kings and demon generals to infiltrate Zhongzhou, he even sent 2 demon marshals. There are 6 demon marshals under the ancient Diablo demon emperor, and they are all powerful soul refinement cultivators. Their methods are extremely vicious and cruel. The reason why the demonic goo plan could spread so quickly to the hundreds of cities in the central continent is greatly related to those 2 demon marshals. Now, the 2 demon marshals and a large number of demon kings and demon generals have already infiltrated the hundreds of cities in the central continent. It is impossible to guard against them. If the demonic goo continues to spread, the tragedy from back then will definitely repeat itself, and the disaster will descend again. Long Yunxiao could no longer suppress the grief and anger in his heart. He asked Divine Master Heiyu, Divine Master Heiyu, do we really have no way to stop the ancient Diablo demon emperor's scheme? The disaster of tens of millions of people dying has already happened. How can we let the bloody lesson repeat itself? The demonic goo and those demon generals and demon kings hiding in the hundreds of cities in the central continent are too many and too well hidden. We can't do anything to them for now. However, we can solve the problem from the root. We can gather all the powerful cultivators in the world and directly attack the northern desert to kill the ancient Diablo demon emperor. 1,000 years ago, the ancient Diablo demon emperor's strength had surpassed the essence soul realm, and perhaps no one could kill him. But now, the ancient Diablo demon emperor has not recovered and only has the strength of a soul refinement realm cultivator. As long as all the powerful cultivators join forces to kill him, we will definitely be able to kill him. As long as he dies, the demonic goo problem will naturally be resolved. Long Yunxiao's tone was impassioned and full of pride and battle intent, making one's blood boil. Even Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao secretly nodded in agreement with this idea. However, Divine Master He Yu shook his head solemnly after hearing Long Yunxiao's words. No, Son of Heaven, you are underestimating the demon race and the ancient Diablo demon emperor too much. The northern desert is an extremely bitter and cold place that has been abandoned by the heavens. The terrain there is dangerous and extremely complicated, and it is easy to defend but difficult to attack. The demon race knows the northern desert like the back of their hands, but the cultivators of the other races are unfamiliar with it. If they are not careful, they will lose their lives. The ancient Diablo demon emperor is also hiding in the northern desert. That is the place where the past demon emperors have lived. After tens of thousands of years of defense and construction, how can it be easily attacked? The idea you mentioned has already been tried 1,000 years ago. Back then, the imperial court of the human race gathered many powerful cultivators and fought their way into the northern desert to attack the ancient Diablo demon emperor's nest. However, before they could reach the ancient Diablo demon emperor's nest, more than half of them were killed or injured. In the end, the ancient Diablo demon emperor took the opportunity to counterattack and killed many powerful cultivators of the human race. Not only that, but the ancient Diablo demon emperor also took the opportunity to attack the human race's territory. He massacred millions of people and destroyed dozens of cities. Chapter 803. Divine Master He Yu's words caused Long Yunxiao's expression to change drastically as he clenched his fists. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were also extremely shocked. Their hearts were heavy and filled with grief and indignation. Obviously, this was a disgrace to the human race and the imperial court. The three of them did not know about this. Ji Tianxing vaguely guessed something, so he asked Divine Master He Yu, Divine Master He Yu, 1,000 years ago, the ancient demon emperor wreaked havoc in the world. The human imperial court gathered many powerhouses but failed to kill him. In the end, who was the one who defeated the demon emperor? Divine Master He Yu glanced at him with a strange look in his eyes. He said calmly, back then, the demon emperor started a massacre in the human race's territory. Blood flowed and corpse puppets were everywhere. The human imperial court and other powerhouses were greatly injured and could not stop the demon emperor from wreaking havoc. In the end, the imperial court asked Kenshin for help to defeat the demon emperor in the Tianshan region and suppress him. Aren't you from the Tianshan region? You should have heard of this, right? Ji Tianxing obviously knew about this, but he just wanted to verify it with Divine Master He Yu. Hearing Divine Master He Yu's words, he quickly explained, I did hear some news about this, but I only treated it as a legend and did not believe it. After he finished speaking, everyone fell silent. The atmosphere seemed to have frozen and was extremely heavy. The ancient demon emperor was powerful and his methods were unpredictable. Even if he hid in the northern desert, he could still use the demon venomous worms to harm the world. It was almost impossible to gather all the powerhouses to attack the demon emperor's nest and kill him. However, the devil commanders, devil kings, and devil generals under the devil emperor's command were also cunning, cruel, and cruel. These demons hid very well and there were many of them. They sneaked into the hundreds of cities in Zhongzhou and spread the demon venomous worms. They were about to cause a huge bloodbath and create a huge disaster. However, no one had found an effective way to restrain the stronger demon venomous worms and demons. Everyone could only look on helplessly as the central state's 100 cities fell into chaos. Countless young elites were implanted with demonic bugs and turned into devils that slaughtered the innocent. At the thought of this, everyone's hearts were filled with grief and indignation. They wished they could tear the ancient demon emperor and his subordinates into pieces. At this moment, Yun Yao sighed with a solemn expression and asked softly, Master, if the demonic goo insect spreads again, the disaster from 1,000 years ago will happen again. Won't the ancient demon emperor sweep across the Zhongzhou continent and bring disaster to the world? 1,000 years ago, Kenshin was still able to suppress it. Now that it has regained its peak strength, doesn't that mean that no one in this world can kill it? Godmaster Heiyu also sighed helplessly and said solemnly, in the current world, it is indeed impossible to find a peerless expert comparable to Kenshin. The ancient demonic emperor was born from an ancient demonic seed. Although he was not in the immortal state, he was almost immortal. In this world, only Kenshin can restrain him. If you want to kill him completely, you would have to wait for Kenshin to come back to life, or... At this point, Godmaster Heiyu paused as if he was lost in his memories and hesitated. Ji Tianxing had always been very sensitive to information related to Kenshin. He hurriedly asked, Master, or what? Divine Master Heiyu glanced at him and revealed a meaningful look. He said solemnly, the sword god has already fallen. He can't be reborn. Other than Kenshin, the only thing that can restrain the ancient demonic emperor is that divine sword of his. Now that the ancient demonic emperor's strength has yet to recover, if we can find that divine sword, we might be able to fight with the ancient demonic emperor and have a chance of killing or suppressing him. Kenshin's divine sword? Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao's expressions changed as a glint flashed across their eyes. The three of them were well aware that Ji Tianxing was the successor of Kenshin. Therefore, when they heard Godmaster Heiyu's words, Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao instinctively looked at Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing's expression did not change, and he did not have much of a reaction. However, he thought to himself, Divine Master Blackfeather is talking about buried heaven. The burial of heaven is also the demonic emperor's nemesis? That's right. When I was at the Tianjian sect, I summoned the heavenly sword steel and used the power of the burial of heaven to severely injure the demonic emperor. At that time, the demonic emperor was extremely terrified and furious, as if he was very wary of the burial of heaven. I see. Godmaster Heiyu was right. At that thought, Ji Tianxing made up his mind to ask about the burial of heaven after leaving the Black Feather Palace. After that, Godmaster Heiyu told Ji Tianxing and the other two about the demonic venomous insects. The three of them bowed and bade farewell to Godmaster Heiyu before leaving the Black Feather Palace together. Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao's hearts were heavy. After bidding farewell to Ji Tianxing, they returned to their respective caves. Ji Tianxing also returned to the Tianxing Palace quietly and quickly entered the secret chamber. He sat cross-legged in the secret chamber and quickly gathered his soul consciousness to enter the Kenshin's tomb. Swoosh! With a flash of light, Ji Tianxing, who was in his soul state, entered the cold and gloomy Kenshin's tomb and appeared under the heavenly sword steel that was thousands of feet tall. At that moment, he was a miniature version of himself that was condensed by the white fog of his soul. He had not entered the Kenshin's tomb for a long time, so he looked around. Although the Kenshin's tomb was still cold and gloomy as usual, it was filled with a mysterious gray fog and death aura. However, the heavenly sword steel had changed. The 4 words on the dark and cold sword steel had become more vigorous, and the sword aura was sharp. Moreover, the heavenly sword steel was surrounded by dense spirit chi that formed layers of clouds. It seems that I have also benefited the burial of heaven greatly after devouring the ancient green maple tree's power for hundreds of years. My power has recovered a lot. He looked at the 18 tombstones on both sides of the heavenly sword steel. He saw that the 9 tombstones on the left had become blank. The sword heart Dao technique recorded on the tombstones had long disappeared. As I expected, I have already cultivated to the 9th level of the sword heart Dao, so the 9th level of the technique has disappeared. Ji Tianxing murmured in his heart and looked at the 9 tombstones on the right side of the heavenly sword steel. The 9 cold and dark tombstones had been blank before. However, at that moment, Ji Tianxing found that lines of ancient characters had appeared on the 9 tombstones. However, the ancient characters engraved on the tombstones were very mottled and blurred. It was impossible to recognize them. He was a little puzzled and subconsciously walked toward the 9 tombstones, wanting to take a closer look. At that moment, The vigorous voice of the burial of heaven suddenly sounded from the heavenly sword steel that was thousands of feet tall. You haven't even cultivated the sword heart Tao, and you're in such a hurry to check the spirit cultivation realm technique? Suddenly hearing the voice of the burial of heaven, Ji Tianxing hurriedly stopped and looked up at the huge sword steel. He smiled and said, "Burial of heaven, I haven't called you yet. Why are you awake?" Chapter 804. Ji Tianxing originally thought that burial of heaven would at least tell him what the technique on the right tombstone was. Unexpectedly, burial of heaven only responded with an and did not say anything else. Ji Tianxing was puzzled and could not help but ask, "Burial of heaven, what technique is recorded on the 9 tombstones? I have already mastered the 9th level of the sword heart and will be cultivating that technique soon. Can you give me some information in advance?" Burial of heaven's tone was calm and vigorous. "Then we'll talk about it after you've mastered the sword heart." Ji Tianxing frowned and looked at the heaven sword steel with dissatisfaction. Burial of heaven was silent for a moment before asking in a deep voice, "Why are you looking for me?" Only then did Ji Tianxing stop thinking about that method. He said in all seriousness, "Buried heaven, the ancient demon emperor is hiding in the northern desert's lair now, but he can still wreak havoc in the world. He sent out 2 demon marshals and a large number of demon kings and demon generals to infiltrate the hundreds of cities in the Middle State to sow demon venomous insects everywhere and harm the young talents of both the human and demon races. I know that the demon emperor committed countless sins 1,000 years ago and harmed tens of millions of martial artists and civilians. In the end, it was Kenshin who defeated him and suppressed him in the Tianshan region. Other than Kenshin, burial of heaven is also the nemesis of the demon emperor, right?" Burial of heaven listened to his words silently. Its aura was as calm as ice and there were not many ripples. The demon emperor had harmed tens of millions of lives. This kind of crime was so cruel and vicious that it made people's hair stand on end. But burial of heaven did not have much of a reaction after hearing it. Maybe it was because it was something that happened 1,000 years ago. Or maybe burial of heaven had experienced countless storms and seen a wider world and was already indifferent to such things. Until Ji Tianxing finished speaking, it replied with a dull and asked, "Do you want to find the divine sword and use it to deal with the demon emperor?" Ji Tianxing nodded and said solemnly, "I do want to find the divine sword of burial of heaven, not only to deal with the demon emperor, but also to help you find your body. Burial of heaven, do you know the whereabouts of the divine sword? After Kenshin fell, where did the divine sword go?" Buried heaven recalled in silence for a long time before saying solemnly, "The divine sword has been broken a long time ago. Even if you can retrieve the broken sword, its power will be far less than before. If you have made up your mind to look for it, you might as well give it a try in the great swamp of the southern wasteland." Of the southern desert again? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said with a face full of doubts, "I've heard this name many times recently, so I have some understanding of the southern wasteland Great Marsh. It is said that it is the land of God's punishment. It is incomparably dangerous. Without the strength of the soul-refining realm, entering is seeking death." Land of God's punishment? Burial of heaven was startled. Then it sneered with a playful tone. "He, God's punishment? For mortals, this name is quite appropriate." Ji Tianxing was interested when he heard it. He quickly asked, "Burial of heaven, from what you said, do you know the truth about the land of God's punishment in the southern desert? That area became a land of death and countless countries and tribes were destroyed. Is it related to you and Kenshin?" Burial of heaven was silent and did not answer. Ji Tianxing had to ask a few times before it finally gave him a response. "I don't remember these things completely. I will tell you when I remember them. Let's continue talking about the divine sword. If you can find the broken divine sword, it will be a good thing for me. At least, I can return to the divine sword's body and recover my strength faster." Ji Tianxing's heart was moved when he heard it. He was full of expectations. "In that case, I must find the burial of heaven's divine sword as soon as possible. Burial of heaven, the divine sword is damaged and its power has decreased greatly. Do Do you have any way to repair the divine sword? Burial of Heaven replied without hesitation, of course there is a way, but it requires a lot of top divine level materials. The star divine gold you obtained before is one of them. Moreover, only the strength of the soul refining realm can repair the divine sword. With your current strength, it is unknown whether you can find the divine sword in the of the southern desert, let alone repair it. Ji Tianxing frowned. He silently made up his mind and said, well, then I have to work hard to cultivate and strive to reach the soul refining realm as soon as possible. Only then can I enter the of the southern desert to find the divine sword. Then he did not waste any more time. He said goodbye to Burial of Heaven and left the Kenshin tomb. He sat cross-legged in the dark secret chamber and looked at the ground solemnly as he pondered silently. The ancient demon emperor had made a comeback and was about to use the demonic venomous insects to create an earth-shattering catastrophe. This made his heart heavy as if a huge rock was pressing down on it. After knowing that the broken divine sword was lost in the of the southern desert, he was eager to improve his strength and reach the soul-refining realm as soon as possible to find the divine sword. In short, the root of the problem was that he had to constantly improve his strength to have a chance to resolve the ancient demon emperor's conspiracy and resist the impending disaster. Otherwise, when the demon emperor wreaked havoc in the middle state and wantonly killed all the martial artists in the world, he would not be able to escape death. After all, he had the Kenshin bloodline and was the ancient demon emperor's #1 enemy. Strength. I have to improve my strength as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing roared in his heart. He had made up his mind to cultivate hard and strive to reach the soul-refining realm as soon as possible. After that, he stayed in the secret chamber and cultivated the Tao of the heart of the sword. He tempered his heart over and over again, enduring the pain of thousands of arrows piercing his heart to strengthen it. In 2 days, he endured the pain of hundreds of thousands of sword chi piercing his heart and even vomited blood twice. It was rare to see someone vomiting blood while cultivating in seclusion. The 8th and 9th levels of the sword heart were extremely difficult and harsh to cultivate. It was no different from self-mutilation. The 8th level of the sword heart was to temper the body, which was equivalent to cutting oneself into pieces. The 9th level of the sword heart was to temper the heart and then fuse it with the sword embryo to form the sword heart. This was equivalent to using sword chi to continuously stab oneself in the heart. Every time he cultivated, his heart would be pierced until it was bloody and covered in wounds. However, he also used the recovery effect of the Kenshin bloodline and the Greenwood spiritual body to heal the wounds in his heart. The reason why the sword heart was so powerful and invincible was that ordinary people were unable to cultivate it. Every time Ji Tianxing cultivated a level of the sword heart, it was as if his entire body was being shredded and reassembled. If it were an ordinary martial artist, who would have such heaven-defying willpower and courage? Who would be able to endure such inhumane pain and torture? Only by enduring the most bitter of hardships can one rise above others. If one did not experience such painful tempering, how could one become the god of the sword heart? 2 days and 2 nights passed. Ji Tianxing had no choice but to stop cultivating to prevent irreversible damage to his body. Of course, his self-mutilating cultivation for the past 2 days had also achieved good results. He had already completed the initial stage of tempering his heart, and his heart was far stronger than an ordinary Heaven's Prime cultivator. After he finished cultivating, he continued to meditate for a few hours. When he walked out of the secret chamber, it was already the morning of the 3rd day. At this time, Yen brought a letter and rushed to his room with a face full of joy to report to him. Chapter 805. Senior Brother Tianxing, there's a letter from Tianshan territory. Yen shouted excitedly as soon as he entered the room. He rushed to Ji Tianxing and handed a letter to Ji Tianxing. A letter from Tianshan territory? Ji Tianxing quickly took the letter and saw the seal of the territory chief's manor on it. He frowned. There was some doubt and anticipation in his heart. He quickly opened the envelope and took out the letter inside. There were thousands of words written on the high-quality rice paper. The handwriting was vigorous and powerful. Ji Tianxing was familiar with the handwriting. He recognized it with just a glance. It was a letter written by his father, Ji Changkong. My son, Tianxing, the words are like a face-to-face. I've received the marriage contract you sent back. It's hard to believe that my son is engaged to the beloved daughter of Cloud Spirit Palace. I'm very happy and excited. My son and the eldest daughter of Cloud Spirit Palace are both emperors. Both of you are famous and noble. The two of you are a match made in heaven. A proud daughter like Yun Yao is a good wife for you. The marriage of your son and daughter must be discussed in person by both parents. After I finish writing this letter, I'll immediately head to Zhongzhou and meet you as soon as possible. At that time, we'll go to Cloud Spirit Palace together. Ji Tianxing quickly finished reading the letter and understood his father's meaning. His father strongly approved of his marriage with Yun Yao. He was very excited and gratified. In order to show his sincerity and courtesy, his father would head to Zhongzhou after sending this letter. On the way, he would be escorted by Guard Commander Jiang Chen and more than 20 guards. His father told him not to worry. When his father arrived in Zhongzhou, he would accompany his father to Cloud Spirit Palace with a big gift and discuss the wedding date with Yun Zhongqi and his wife. That's great. Father will come to Zhongzhou soon. After you go to Cloud Spirit Palace and discuss the wedding date with Uncle, Yao Yao and I will be married soon. Ji Tianxing was a little excited and happy, full of expectations. He put away his father's letter and said to Yen, pass down the order. Let the housekeeper arrange the maids and servants to carefully clean the palace. In about 3 or 4 days, my father will come to the central province. Tell them to prepare to welcome him. Great. When uncle comes, senior brother and eldest senior sister's wedding date can be set. Yen also cheered excitedly, revealing an expectant look. After chatting with Ji Tianxing for a while, he turned around and left the room to pass on his orders to the butler. Ji Tianxing also walked out of the room and prepared to go to Yun Yao's palace to tell Yun Yao the news. However, just as he arrived at the gate of Tianxing Palace, he saw Long Yunxiao flying in from afar and landing at the gate. Long Yunxiao's face was solemn, as if there was something important. Coincidentally, the two met at the gate. Ji Tianxing asked the guards to open the gate and welcome Long Yunxiao in. Son of heaven, what a coincidence! I was just about to go out and you came. Ji Tianxing cupped his hands and greeted Long Yunxiao. Long Yunxiao returned his greeting and said with a calm face, Then I came at the right time. If I came a little later, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to see you. Let's go. I have something to tell you. Let's go in and talk. Ji Tianxing made a please gesture and led him into Tianxing Palace. They walked into the depths of the palace. He guessed that Long Yunxiao wanted to talk business, so he didn't go to the reception hall and went directly to the study. After the two entered the study, Ji Tianxing asked the maids to bring 2 cups of spirit tea. After the maids left, Long Yunxiao said with a solemn face, Tianxing, the situation in Central State is very chaotic now. It has made the emperor quite angry. After the Duanmu family was destroyed, all the heroes took action to snatch the properties and businesses left behind by the Duanmu family. They fought and killed each other for this. Even with Cloud Spirit Palace secretly suppressing and presiding over the overall situation, it can only restrain a small number of forces. It is difficult to control the hundreds of cities in Central State. Moreover, demonic insects are constantly appearing in the hundreds of cities. More and more young talents and experts have been planted with demonic insects by the demons and are killing in the cities. Previously, the lords of the cities were still able to suppress this news. Now that things are getting more and more intense, the news of demonic insects has spread like wildfire in the various cities. The people in the cities are very frightened and uneasy, and all kinds of rumors are constantly spreading. And all the major forces are busy fighting to snatch resources and properties, giving the demons an opportunity. Now, all the major cities are in chaos and there are countless casualties every day. The imperial court wants to maintain the stability of the situation, but it is also powerless. After Ji Tianxing heard him finish, he also frowned and said with a solemn face, The situation in Central State will be chaotic. This has long been within my expectations. If there are no accidents, the chaos caused by the Duanmu family's destruction will last for at most half a year. But I didn't expect that the demons would actually sneak into the hundreds of cities in Central State and take the opportunity to cause chaos, spreading demonic insects everywhere. They really deserve to die. Pausing, he looked at Long Yunxiao and asked in a deep voice, "Then does the emperor know who destroyed the Duanmu family? How did the emperor react?" Long Yunxiao glanced at him and nodded with a bitter smile. "Previously, you destroyed the Duanmu family's herb garden and caused such a big commotion. Even a fool knows that the destruction of the Duanmu family is definitely related to you and Cloud Spirit Palace. In the Central State, there are only a few forces that can go against the Duanmu family. You and Cloud Spirit Palace are the most suspicious. Also, you guys didn't really do it flawlessly and didn't leave any clues. Not only did the Emperor know that it was you and Cloud Spirit Palace who did it, many top forces also found clues and knew about this matter. After the Emperor knew about this, he was naturally furious and almost ordered for you to be arrested. But I helped you plead for leniency, so the Emperor appeased his anger. You don't have to thank me verbally, just remember it in your heart." Ji Tianxing raised his head and looked at him, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Long Yunxiao pretended not to see his reaction and continued, "Also, there is one more thing that I have to remind you to be careful. According to what I know, the mastermind behind the Duanmu family is the third prince of the imperial court. You and Cloud Spirit Palace work together to destroy the Duanmu family. If the imperial court and the top forces can find out, the third prince will naturally be able to find out the results. I found out that the third prince has already confirmed that the murderer is you. He is secretly plotting to deal with you and take revenge for the Duanmu family. He finally can't help but want to personally get rid of me?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and revealed a playful smile. "Son of Heaven, then tell me more about the third prince." Long Yunxiao nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, "The third prince has great power in the imperial court. He is the most ambitious and scheming among all the princes. Not only is he extremely shrewd and astute, but he is also ruthless and despicable. Most importantly, he controls the imperial court's palace guards and several armies. Other than that, there is also a divine general guarding the border who is loyal to him. The Duanmu family is the third prince's right-hand man and has the most powerful power and weapon in his hands. But you destroyed the Duanmu family, which is equivalent to cutting off his arm. With such a huge hatred, with his vengeful personality, he will definitely not let you go. He will definitely wait for an opportunity to take revenge." Ji Tianxing had already learned a lot about the third prince through Yen. He even knew that the third prince used the origin of all Gu to control the Duanmu and Murong family. And Long Yunxiao definitely didn't know this secret. As for the divine generals under the imperial court, they were all great experts in the spirit refinement realm. They were marshals with great power and had a high status and great prestige. Chapter 806. After Long Yunxiao's reminder, Ji Tianxing had a deeper understanding of the third prince. Of course, he would be cautious. He looked at Long Yunxiao seriously and asked, "Son of Heaven, how is your relationship with the third prince?" The corners of Long Yunxiao's mouth curled up into a cold smile. His tone was indifferent as he said, "He and I are brothers of the same father but different mothers. Although we are related by blood, we are also archenemies. He has always thought highly of himself and is quite conceited. He thinks that he is the most outstanding genius among all the princes. It is said that he has reached the half-step soul-refining realm and is trying to break through the shackles of the soul-refining realm. He is currently the strongest among all the princes. However, I am confident that I can step into the soul-refining realm without waiting for him to reach that age. You have ambition. I believe in you." Ji Tianxing nodded to Long Yunxiao and gave him a thumbs up. He asked, "Then the third prince should be 40 years old, right?" Long Yunxiao nodded and said, "Yes, he will be 40 next year. Therefore, he is determined to reach the soul-refining realm within a year and become the youngest soul-refining realm expert. He always felt that the position of Son of Heaven should be his. It is only because his mother is an ordinary concubine and this prince's mother is the empress that I snatched the position of son of heaven from him. He and this prince are like fire and water. If he has the chance to get rid of this prince without leaving any evidence, he will definitely not show mercy. Hearing Long Yunxiao's words, Ji Tianxing understood. The third prince was not only his enemy, but also Long Yunxiao's enemy. It was no wonder that Long Yunxiao would come to tell him personally after investigating. At this moment, the guard outside the study reported respectfully, reporting to Domain Lord, Miss Yun Yao has arrived. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and smiled. Oh, what a coincidence! I was just about to go find her. After saying that, he ordered the guard outside to invite Yun Yao in. After a while, Yun Yao walked in. Seeing that Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao were in the study and seemed to be discussing business, she was startled for a moment and greeted them. Yao Yao, you came at the right time. I was just about to look for you. Ji Tianxing quickly asked her to sit down. Yun Yao sat down beside him and asked doubtfully, Tianxing, what can I do for you? Ji Tianxing let out a smile and said, I just received a letter from my father. He'll come to Central Prefecture in about 3 or 4 days. At that time, my father and I will go to Cloud Spirit Palace to discuss our wedding date with Uncle. Once they reach an agreement on this matter, we will be able to get married very soon. When Ji Tianxing announced this news, Long Yunxiao was also present and heard it clearly. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were very happy. Their hearts were filled with anticipation. The two of them even held hands and looked at each other with gentle eyes. They said tender and sweet words, just like a pair of happy lovers. The emperor sat at the side and looked at the two of them being very affectionate in front of him. Suddenly, his expression became a little unnatural and he couldn't sit still. A trace of sourness and jealousy welled up in his heart, but he couldn't show it. He had to maintain the etiquette and demeanor of the emperor. Seeing that Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao didn't have any scruples about him, he couldn't sit still anymore. He suppressed the sourness in his heart and stood up. He squeezed out a smile on his handsome face and cupped his hands to Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. Tianxing, Yao Yao, since your wedding date is approaching, this emperor congratulates the two of you first. At that time, on the day of your wedding, this emperor will definitely bring the heavenly consort to congratulate you. Take your time to chat. This emperor still has something to do and will leave first. After that, he didn't wait for Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao's reply. He turned around and walked out of the study and left quickly. It wasn't until he was far away from the study that Long Yunxiao finally relaxed. Phew! He let out a long breath. His face was a little pale, and there was a bitter smile on his face. There was some sourness in his heart and a trace of pain, but he could only endure it. After standing in a daze for a moment, he calmed down and quickly left Tianxing Palace. In the study, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were still sitting together. Ji Tianxing held Yun Yao's hand. He thought about it seriously and asked, Yao Yao, I think the 9th day of next month is an auspicious day. Why don't we let my father and Uncle Yun set the wedding date on that day? Yun Yao raised her eyebrows in surprise. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. She was obviously a little shy. So fast? There's only 1 month. There's not enough time to prepare. Ji Tianxing shook his head and said with a smile, Is 1 month long? I've already prepared for it. I just want to marry you as soon as possible so that we can live together and have a few cute babies. Yun Yao was still able to keep calm. It was just that her earlobes were a little red. Abruptly hearing these words, her fair and peerlessly beautiful face instantly flushed red. She was so embarrassed that water was about to drip from her eyes. Stop talking. How can you talk about such a shameful thing? Yun Yao lowered her head in embarrassment. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Ji Tianxing looked at her. The icy goddess who was as cold and aloof as a fairy was actually so shy. He was immediately filled with pride and a sense of accomplishment. After all, he was the only one in the world who was qualified to appreciate Yun Yao's current appearance. He didn't feel shy at all. He said naturally, Yao Yao, it's nothing for me to say this. It's very pure. You see, when other couples get married, the guests will wish them to have a baby soon. Not only are they not shy, but they are also very happy to receive the blessings. By the way, Yao Yao, do you like a boy or a girl? If we have a daughter, she must be as beautiful as you. She's as beautiful as a fairy and stands aloof from the world. She must be as beautiful as a fairy who has descended to the mortal world. Yun Yao's cheeks were red from his words. Her earlobes were boiling hot. She buried her head in the towering mountains in front of her chest. She was so shy that her breathing became a little rapid. She quickly grabbed Ji Tianxing's arm with both hands and whispered, "Tianxing, stop talking." Ji Tianxing saw that she was so shy that she couldn't raise her head. He immediately laughed and stopped teasing her. Seeing her shy but even more beautiful appearance, he felt an inexplicable throbbing in his heart. He reached out and took Yun Yao into his arms. Yun Yao only resisted twice before she was held in his arms. She lowered her head and leaned against his chest. Taking advantage of Yun Yao's guilty conscience, he gently reached out his hands, put them around her neck, held her head, and lowered his head to kiss her thin lips. Yun Yao's body suddenly stiffened. She woke up from her shyness and widened her clear eyes. She happened to meet Ji Tianxing's burning and affectionate eyes. Her whole heart melted at once. She was immersed in Ji Tianxing's gentle kisses and even forgot to resist. Chapter 807. After a long time, Ji Tianxing finally let go of Yun Yao and ended their intimate moment. The two of them gradually calmed down and began to discuss business. Ji Tianxing asked Yun Yao why she came to Tianxing Palace. Yun Yao then told him that the situation in Zhongzhou was very chaotic and it was difficult for Cloud's Soul Palace to control it in secret. Yun Zhongqi asked her to tell Ji Tianxing to be careful in the near future. After hearing Yun Yao's words, Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "Yao Yao, the emperor has already told me what you said. Moreover, not only is the situation in Zhongzhou chaotic, but the demon race is also taking advantage of the situation and the third prince of the imperial court." Then Ji Tianxing told Yun Yao what Long Yunxiao said. After hearing this, Yun Yao immediately frowned and revealed a serious expression. Her eyes were filled with worry. "Tianxing, you have to be careful in the near future. Don't leave the emperor's residence so easily. The situation is very chaotic now. The demon race, the remaining members of the Duanmu family, and the third prince all want to kill you. It wasn't easy for us to go through so many hardships to get to where we are today. You've already experienced too many life and death situations. We're going to get married soon. I don't want you to be in danger again." The wedding date was about to be decided and the two of them were not far from getting married. However, because of this, Yun Yao's emotions became more and more uneasy. Her heart was filled with worry. Even though she didn't say it, she loved Ji Tianxing deeply and treated Ji Tianxing as important as her own life. The Duanmu family was finally eliminated and Cloud's Soul Palace was finally at peace. Her parents finally accepted Ji Tianxing and agreed to their marriage. The two of them went through so many hardships and were finally going to be together and live a life like an immortal couple. However, the demons, the remnants of the Duanmu family, and the third prince of the imperial court wanted to kill Ji Tianxing and her fiancé. Yun Yao had a vague premonition that the destruction of the Duanmu family was not the end, but the beginning of a bigger storm. What awaited her and Ji Tianxing was not a peaceful and happy life, but an even greater challenge and danger. A strong sense of danger, as if death was approaching, filled her heart with worry and depression. Even her joy of marrying Ji Tianxing had been diluted by the deep worry in her heart. If a person had nothing, they would have no desires and their will would be firm. After all, there was nothing to lose. But if a person had great happiness, they would be even more afraid and worried. They were afraid of losing the happiness they had, afraid of losing everything. Ji Tianxing understood this, so he also understood Yun Yao's worries. She cherished the love between the two of them too much, so she was worried about gains and losses. She was afraid that she would lose him or that he would be hurt. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing held Yun Yao's hand tightly and looked at her firmly. He said in a firm tone, "Yao Yao, I know you are worried about me and afraid that I will be retaliated against. Don't worry, I will definitely protect myself and will never leave you. After all, I haven't married you yet and we haven't had a baby yet. Yun Yao was immediately amused by his words and felt a little embarrassed. However, she endured the embarrassment in her heart and nodded. Tianxing, I believe you. You have to remember this promise. No matter what, I don't want to lose you. No matter where you go, I will accompany you, even if it is the underworld. Ji Tianxing nodded and did not say anything else. He just hugged Yun Yao tightly in his arms. However, he was thinking silently in his heart, if there is no love, there will be no desire. If there is deep love, there will be deep love. Before every girl gets married, they will probably be worried about gains and losses and feel insecure, right? Now that I am weak, I am really too weak in front of the ancient demon emperor and the third prince. I can only increase my strength. When I am strong enough, I will be able to solve all these problems and give Yao Yao peace of mind and stability so that she will no longer worry about me. One day, I will also become a peerless powerhouse like Kenshin and look down on all the strong enemies in the world. I will even be able to kill the ancient demon emperor that was born from the ancient demon seed. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing's desire for strength became even more urgent. Unknowingly, for days passed very quickly. In these 4 days, Ji Tianxing had been cultivating in seclusion in the secret chamber. He was cultivating the 9th level of the sword heart technique, heart tempering. No matter how painful the process was, he gritted his teeth and persevered with great willpower. He only wanted to increase his strength as soon as possible so that he would have enough strength to resist the third prince's revenge and the ancient demon emperor's invasion. On the night of the 4th day, he finally ended his cultivation and began to regulate his breathing. After a night of rest, the side effects and scars from the heart tempering had all disappeared. When the sky outside was slightly brighter, he was in high spirits again. Early in the morning, he changed into a clean white robe. After tidying up, he left the monarch mansion with Yen. Today was the 5th day. Ji Tianxing estimated that his father would arrive in Zhongzhou City by noon today at the latest. After leaving the monarch mansion with Yen, he went straight to the south gate of Zhongzhou City to welcome his father's arrival. After all, if he did not come out of the monarch mansion to welcome his father, Jiang Qin, and the guards would not be able to enter the monarch mansion. When he arrived at the south gate, the sun was rising. Ji Tianxing and Yen went out of the city gate and stood on the wide road outside the city. They quietly looked to the south and waited. As time passed, more and more people entered and exited the city gate. There was an endless stream of people. In half a day, there were more than 20 groups of people who came from the south to Zhongzhou City. However, Ji Tianxing and Yen waited until noon, but they did not see his father, Jiang Chen, and the others. The joy and anticipation in his heart gradually faded. He frowned and muttered with some worry and doubt, "It shouldn't be. It's already been 5 days. Father will definitely arrive today." Yen saw that he was worried and hurriedly comforted, "Senior brother Tianxing, don't worry. Maybe uncle and the others were delayed by something? Let's wait patiently." Ji Tianxing nodded and continued to wait patiently. Soon, the afternoon passed and the sun was about to set. Until now, Ji Tianxing did not see Ji Changkong, Jiang Chen, and the others. The worry in his heart grew more and more, and he vaguely had a bad premonition. At this moment, he raised his eyes and looked to the south. On the wide and flat grassland, he saw a dark red figure galloping quickly. Although they were separated by 10 miles, his eyesight was extremely strong. He immediately saw that it was a martial artist wearing armor. He was currently riding a spirit beast and was madly galloping. That martial artist seemed to have suffered a severe injury. Lying on the back of his spirit beast mount, his entire body was stained with blood as he galloped towards the South City Gate. After a while, the spirit beast rushed out of the city gate as fast as the wind. It was only 100 feet away from Ji Tianxing. Only then did he see clearly that the martial artist lying on the back of the spirit beast was seriously injured and covered in blood. This person was Jiang Qin, the guard commander of the domain chief's mansion. "Father, something happened." Chapter 808. Ji Tianxing recognized that the man on the back of the spirit beast was Jiang Qin. His expression immediately changed. He immediately realized that something must have happened to his father. His heart was in his mouth. After all, his father was escorted by Jiang Qin and the guards to Zhongzhou City. Swoosh! He dashed forward almost without hesitation. He waved his palm and released a soft five-colored spiritual light to stop the spirit beast that was running wildly. Jiang Qin, who was lying on the back of the spirit beast, was wearing the armor of the Domain Lord's Mansion's guard commander. His helmet was nowhere to be seen. His long hair was stained with blood and hung loosely behind his head. His armor was somewhat tattered. More than a dozen cracks could be seen on it. The wounds inside were so deep that his bones could be seen. Dark red blood gushed out from the wounds and dyed his armor red. He was covered in blood. Even the spirit beast that he was riding was dark green. Large patches of it were stained with blood. Jiang Chen's injuries were extremely miserable. He was on the verge of death. When the spirit beast was stopped, he struggled to lift his head and opened his eyes that were covered in blood. Then he looked at Ji Tianxing in a daze. When he saw Ji Tianxing's appearance clearly, he was immediately stunned. He quickly said, Domain Lord. As soon as he opened his mouth to speak, dark red blood kept gushing out from the corner of his mouth. He could not speak clearly and his voice was unclear. Ji Tianxing was full of anxiety and worry. He quickly asked in a deep voice, Jiang Qin, what happened? Why are you injured? Where's my father? My lord. Jiang Qin tried his best to open his mouth and report the news. However, his injuries were too serious. His body swayed a few times. Finally, he could not hold on any longer. His eyes turned black and he fainted. Seeing that he was about to fall from the spirit beast's back, Ji Tianxing quickly reached out and caught him. Yan rushed over and asked anxiously, Senior Brother Tianxing, how did this happen? What the hell is going on? Ji Tianxing's face was as gloomy as ice, but his heart was as anxious as fire. He hurriedly channeled his greenwood spirit qi into Jiang Chen's body to help him suppress the injury. However, Jiang Chen's injuries were too severe, and it was difficult to suppress them in a short period of time. No one knew when he would wake up. Come on, let's hurry back to Cool Breeze Courtyard. Ji Tianxing shouted in a low and sonorous voice. He hurriedly carried the unconscious Jiang Chen and passed through the city gates like lightning, rushing towards the Cool Breeze Courtyard. In less than an hour, he rushed back to Cool Breeze Courtyard at his fastest speed. When the guards at the gate of Cool Breeze Courtyard saw him rushing over with a martial artist covered in blood, they immediately drew their swords to stop him. I'm Ji Tianxing. Get out of my way. In order to save time, Ji Tianxing quickly reported his identity and shouted angrily. The guards recognized him and hurriedly retreated to the side. Shua! Ji Tianxing turned into a stream of light, passing through the gate and rushing into Cool Breeze Courtyard. He didn't have time to greet the Beast King. After entering Cool Breeze Courtyard, he took Jiang Chen into a secret room for healing. He placed Jiang Chen on the frost jade bed used for healing, activated the formation in the secret room, and gave Jiang Chen a few healing pills. Not long after, the Beast King rushed over after hearing the news and entered the secret room. The Beast King had participated in the great battle on the night of the destruction of the Duanmu family and had suffered heavy injuries. Now that he had recuperated for close to 10 days, his injuries had basically recovered and there were no major problems. After entering the secret room, the Beast King asked Ji Tianxing what had happened with concern. Ji Tianxing explained with a grave expression, My father was supposed to arrive in Zhongzhou City today. Jiang Chen was the commander of the guards escorting my father to Zhongzhou City. Yan and I waited at the city gates for a day, but my father didn't arrive. Only Jiang Chen was carried back by a spirit beast covered in blood. The Beast King immediately understood the urgency of the matter and hurriedly joined hands with him to perform a secret art to heal Jiang Chen's injuries. Both of them were Sky Origin Realm experts, and Ji Tianxing had mastered the secret art of healing, Wood Emperor's Umbrella. With the Beast King's help, he performed the ultimate skill of the Wood Emperor's Umbrella and suppressed Jiang Chen's injuries within 2 hours. Jiang Chen's life was saved, and his injuries were finally stabilized. His life was no longer in danger. However, he was still unconscious. Ji Tianxing, the Beast King, and Yen could only wait patiently. At this moment, the flow of time seemed to have slowed down. Fortunately, Jiang Qin was a Sky Origin Realm expert, and his self-healing ability was strong. After being unconscious for 2 hours, he finally woke up. Ji Tianxing had been guarding him by his side. Seeing that he had woken up, he hurriedly said, "Jiang Qin, you're finally awake." Jiang Qin weakly opened his eyes and stared at Ji Tianxing. His voice was weak and dry as he said, "Domain Lord, I'm sorry I didn't do my job well." Ji Tianxing was full of anxiety. He asked with a dignified voice, "Speak quickly, what happened?" Jiang Qin didn't dare to delay and hurriedly answered truthfully, "My lord, I and 24 guards escorted the master from the Tianjin region. We traveled day and night without stopping. At noon today, not long after we left Yuanyu City, we were only 2,000 miles away from Zhongzhou City. I didn't expect that we would be ambushed on the way." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing's expression changed. He secretly said in his heart, "As expected." When the Beast King and Yen heard this, their hearts immediately jumped to their throats. Jiang Chen panted twice and continued, "There were only 8 people who attacked us, but they were abnormally strong and their methods were very vicious. 3 of them had reached the Sky Origin realm. They were all dressed in black and wore masks to hide their identities and didn't show their true faces. I and the guards fought with all our might to protect the master and break out of the encirclement. However, the black-clothed people were too strong. They killed all the guards and captured the old master after injuring him. I fought a bloody battle and wanted to protect the master with my life, but I was severely injured by them. They only left me alive and let me go. They also asked me to bring you a message." When Ji Tianxing heard that the other party was so cruel and vicious, his face immediately turned cold with anger. Especially when he heard that his father was captured, his eyes flashed with killing intent. However, he suppressed his anger and killing intent and hurriedly asked, "What message did they ask you to bring?" Jiang Chen hurriedly answered, "The leader of the black-clothed people said that they won't kill the master for the time being. If you want to save the master, go to the peaceful mountain in the northern suburbs of Yuanyu City alone. If you dare to bring others there, or if you don't reach the peaceful mountain by noon tomorrow, you can only collect the master's corpse." Ji Tianxing immediately frowned. His eyes surged with cold killing intent and he cursed, "Bastard." Although he was incomparably worried about his father's safety and his heart was filled with rage, he couldn't wait to rush to the peaceful mountain and tear the black-clothed people into pieces. However, he wasn't impulsive. He was very clear that the other party had come prepared and deliberately captured his father to threaten him. This was obviously a specially designed scheme. Chapter 809. The secret room was silent and the atmosphere was heavy and stifling. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment, but couldn't figure out anything. He couldn't guess the identity of the black-clothed men at all. Jiang Chen, did the black-clothed men have any obvious characteristics? Were they humans or foreign races? Did they mention any factions when they asked you to pass on the message? Jiang Chen thought carefully before replying, "Sir, the black-clothed men should be humans, but their accents were a bit awkward. Apart from that, they didn't reveal any information about their identities, nor did they mention any factions." Ji Tianxing frowned and muttered to himself, "If it's a human faction, then it's most likely related to the Duanmu family to plot against me like this. But the black-clothed men's accents were awkward. Could they be demons pretending to be humans? That's also possible." He then asked Jiang Chen a few more questions, and Jiang Chen answered them all carefully and seriously. But even so, Ji Tianxing still couldn't determine the identity of the black-clothed men. Forget it. No matter what, saving people is more important. Ji Tianxing was anxious and worried, so he didn't think too much and decided to go to Peaceful Mountain first to save people. He gave Jiang Chen a few words of advice and told him to rest in the Qingfeng courtyard and recover. He didn't waste any more time and immediately walked out of the secret room, about to leave the Qingfeng courtyard. The Beast King and Yen hurriedly followed. their faces full of anxiety and worry as they tried to dissuade him. Tianxing, don't be rash. This is obviously the other side's scheme. Senior brother Tianxing, if you hurry to Peaceful Mountain now, the other side will have set up an ambush and trap long ago. Tianxing stopped in his tracks and said to the two with a serious expression, Senior Beast King, Yen, I know you're worried for me. How could I not know that this is the other side's scheme? But my father is in their hands. Even if they've set up traps and ambushes, I still have to go save him. The Beast King and Yen both understood this and knew that they couldn't stop Tianxing. Thus, the Beast King solemnly said, Tianxing, since you've already made up your mind, this old man won't try to persuade you anymore. However, this old man wants to go with you so that you can have a helper. Tianxing shook his head and rejected. Senior Beast King, I appreciate your good intentions, but the other party specifically asked me to go to Ning Mountain alone. We are in the open while the other party is in the dark. I can't take this risk and put my father in a desperate situation. Senior Beast King, I'm sorry. After saying this, he cupped his hands towards the Beast King and left the cool breeze courtyard as fast as lightning. The Beast King and Yen stood in the courtyard and watched him fly into the sky. His figure quickly disappeared into the horizon. I hope everything goes well. The Beast King sighed helplessly. Yen also showed a look of deep worry, silently praying for Tianxing in her heart. After a long while, the two of them turned around and returned to the secret room to treat Jiang Chen's injuries. On the other side, Tianxing flew out of Central Continent City as fast as lightning, rushing towards Yuanyu City with his fastest speed. Yuanyu City was located in the south of Central Continent City, about 1,000 miles away. With Tianxing's speed, he could reach Yuanyu City in 4 hours at most. It was already late at night. As Tianxing hurried along, he silently estimated that he should be able to reach Ning Mountain at dawn tomorrow. Yuanyu City was a main city with a radius of more than 100 miles. This majestic and ancient city had a history of more than 1,000 years. Nearly 1 million cultivators and common people lived in the city. Although many changes had happened in the central continent in the past 1,000 years and experienced countless storms, but this ancient city had always stood tall in the mountains to the south of Central Continent City. The city was surrounded by lofty mountains and steep ridges. The terrain was steep and dangerous. There were many birds and beasts in the mountain range, and the spirit of heaven and earth was abundant. It was not only a paradise for all kinds of monsters, but also a place of adventure for many cultivators. About 200 miles to the north of Yuanyu City, there was a mountain more than 3,000 meters high called Ning Mountain. Not only was this Ning Mountain the tallest mountain within a radius of 100 miles, its appearance was extremely unique. Looking at it from afar, this mountain was like a person's palms clasped together, bowing to the heavens and praying for the world to be peaceful and the common people to be peaceful. This was how the name Ning Mountain came about. However, this mountain that symbolized beauty was destined not to be peaceful today, and even had a bloody calamity. At the peak of Ning Mountain, a cave was cut open by someone on the rock wall. The cave entrance was protected by the energy of a mysterious formation, and light couldn't penetrate it. The cave entrance was pitch black, and it was faintly suffused with strands of black mist. The passageway within the cave meandered towards the belly of the mountain, and it connected to a vast cave. The ceiling and walls of the cave were inlaid with moonstones, emitting a gentle brilliance that brought a trace of hazy light to the cave. At this moment, there were over 20 martial artists occupying the cave. There were 18 martial artists wearing black clothes and veils, and they carried heavy broadswords and sabers on their backs, guarding the cave's surroundings and the entrance. Their figures were tall and sturdy, and their entire bodies emitted a fierce killing intent. All of them had a strength at the 7th or 8th level of the Origin Core stage. Obviously, these 18 martial artists in black were all elite experts. Among them, there were 3 leaders whose strengths had reached the 5th or 6th level of the Heavenly Origin stage, and they were all experts with profound strength. However, these 3 people stood respectfully in the middle of the cave, as if they were waiting for orders, and they didn't have the slightest attitude of an expert. This was because there were 2 thrones carved from huge rocks at the innermost side of the cave, and there were 2 experts who were tall and sturdy like an iron tower and strong like a brown bear sitting on them. These 2 experts were over 3 meters tall, and their bodies were terrifyingly majestic. Their entire bodies were covered with dense dark purple hair, and their muscles were knotted together. They looked ferocious and ferocious. Obviously, they were from the Devil Clan. The expert from the Devil Clan who sat on the throne on the left had extraordinarily long arms, and his appearance was like a huge ape. He had a pair of bell-sized eyes, and his pupils were dark red, as if they were burning with raging blood flames. He was bare-chested, and a dark apron made of flood dragon skin was wrapped around his waist. His wide feet weren't wearing shoes either. He only had a wide scarlet cloak draped over his shoulders, revealing his dense hair and rock-like muscles on his chest, showing his unparalleled strength and dominance. Most importantly, this person's strength had surpassed the heavenly origin stage, and his entire body emitted the unique soul fluctuation of a soul-tempering stage powerhouse. Without a doubt, this was a soul-tempering stage Devil Clan expert. The expert from the Devil Clan who sat on the throne on the right was as sturdy as a brown bear. His entire body was covered with long dark red hair, and he even had a bloody mouth full of fangs. This person wore a wide purple robe, and on his dark purple neck hung a white bone necklace that was as thick as an arm. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that the white beads on the necklace were actually made from the skulls of human experts. Each bead was only the size of a fist, and it was obvious that they were skulls that were shrunk many times. Chapter 8:10. This demon with the skull necklace had also reached the spirit refinement realm. He sat on the throne like a tiger crouching or a dragon coiled up. His dark purple eyes flashed with a cold light. His body emitted an invisible pressure, causing the temperature in the cave to drop. The dozen or so black-clothed guards were so anxious that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Even the soul refinement realm expert with the scarlet cloak beside him showed a hint of respect towards him. Obviously, this demon with purple hair and purple robes was the strongest in the cave, the leader of the group. At this moment, the purple-robed demon was playing with a fist-sized crystal ball in his wide palm. Inside the translucent crystal ball, there was actually a 2-inch-tall little person. The pocket-sized person was a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance. This person wore a sapphire blue robe and a square crown on his head. His face was resolute, and his whole body exuded the dignity and nobility of a superior. Unfortunately, he was injured. There were at least a dozen wounds on his body, so deep that his bones could be seen. The flesh around the wounds rolled up, vaguely showing a black aura. Black and red blood flowed out continuously, dyeing his blue robe dark red. His breathing was weak and his face was pale. Sealed in the crystal ball, he couldn't struggle or escape. If Ji Tianqing was here, he would recognize this heavily injured middle-aged man as his father, Ji Changkong. The purple-robed demon seemed to be casually playing with the crystal ball. His eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the entrance of the cave, as if he was patiently waiting for something. The cave was silent. The many Heavenly Origin Realm and Origin Core Realm black-clothed martial artists didn't dare to make a sound. Only the red-haired demon race powerhouse in a scarlet cloak seemed to be getting impatient from waiting. He grinned and said with a resentful tone, "My clan has been resting for 1,000 years. We've been hiding in the northern desert for 1,000 years, and we're used to living a peaceful life. Marshallswa, look at these demon kings. They're all good-for-nothings. They can't even handle such a small matter. To deal with a heaven origin stage human brat, the 2 of us have to come here. These demon kings are a bunch of trash." The red-haired man cursed. The 3 sky origin stage demon kings in black didn't even dare to fart. They lowered their heads in fear. The purple-robed powerhouse called Marshals will put away the crystal ball without batting an eyelid. He glanced at the red-haired expert and said indifferently, "Old Six, you can't say that. Even though His Majesty the Devil Emperor has not been in the northern desert for the past 1,000 years, our warriors are still brave and courageous. They are not greedy for pleasure, and they are not useless. That human brat is not simple. I can't let my guard down." According to the Nephilim king, that brat should be a descendant of the Kenshin. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to injure the Nephilim king. Not only does that kid have the bloodline of Kenshin, but he also seems to have the help of the soul of the divine sword. Although he was only at the sky origin realm, he was not someone ordinary devil kings could deal with. His Majesty the Nephilim king specifically told Banshui that no matter what, he must bring back the Kenshin bloodline unharmed. This mission is very important. You and I can't let our guard down. The red-haired expert called Old Six didn't take Marshall's words to heart. He sneered disapprovingly. Marshall's even if that brat is a descendant of the Kenshin, he is only at the sky origin realm. How strong can he be? You and I are both famous devil marshals. We are in charge of millions of devil armies for His Majesty the Nephilim king. We have guarded the northern desert for hundreds of years. What kind of situation have we not seen? Now that we have captured that brat's father, he can only obediently follow us. When that brat comes, Marshals, you don't have to do anything. Just watch me kill him in 3 moves and take his Kenshin bloodline. Marshals and Old Six were both devil marshals under the Nephilim king. They were in charge of millions of devil armies. They were also in the spirit refining realm. Marshals was the leader of the 2. He was ranked 5th among the 6 devil marshals. He was in the 3rd layer of spirit refining realm. Old Six was the weakest of the 6 devil marshals. He was in the 1st layer of spirit refining realm. Old Six's name was Tu Ren. He was promoted to devil marshal 60 years ago. He was the weakest of the 6 devil marshals. Before he became a devil marshal, he was the devil king of a large tribe. He was bloodthirsty, cruel, and bloodthirsty. He was nicknamed the Blood Hand Butcher. According to Tu Ren, his greatest hobby was to slaughter humans. Therefore, he changed his name to Tu Ren. He had long forgotten his real name. His hands were stained with blood. He had killed countless humans. If there weren't 100,000, there were at least 80,000. The purple-robed expert marshals knew Old Six's temperament very well. He knew that this person had always been arrogant and vicious. If they were in the northern desert, he wouldn't care about Tu Ren. He would just let him brag as he pleased. But now that the 2 of them were carrying a heavy responsibility, the Nephilim king ordered them to come to the central state to carry out the plan. Marshals had to be careful. He frowned and said to Tu Ren in a serious tone, Old Six 2, this is the central state continent. It is close to the sacred land of martial arts, the central state city. The experts of the human and demon races are all gathered in this area. The most mysterious and powerful monarch mansion is also in the central state city. We are alone in the central state. It is already very dangerous. If we are not careful, we will be surrounded by the experts of various races. We must be careful. Tu Ren saw that Marshals' tone was serious. He stopped muttering and listened quietly. Marshals continued. Also, our mission in the central state this time is very heavy. Not only do we have to deal with that kid and seize the Kenshin bloodline, we also have to spread the demonic goo. The demonic goo plan had just started to take off. But it was disrupted by the princes of the monarch mansion. Now, all the lords of the cities are investigating the demonic goo. Even the monarch mansion has started to investigate. When Banshui finds the chance, he must kill those princes who meddle in other people's business. After listening to him, Tu Ren nodded and said, Okay, I know. Marshals, don't worry. When that kid comes, I will twist his head off and seize his Kenshin bloodline. After we deal with him, we can carry out the demonic goo plan without worry. Just as Tu Ren's voice fell, a devil general dressed in black rushed into the cave with quick steps. The demon general in black walked in front of Marshals and Tu Ren. He knelt down respectfully and reporting to the 2 demon marshals, Ji Tianxing has arrived. He is rushing to the mountain peak. Hearing this news, Marshals and Tu Ren looked at each other and sneered. Their eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Tu Ren was the first to stand up. He sneered with anticipation. Hee, that kid is finally here. Banshui wants to see how capable this so-called Kenshin descendant is. Can he take a hit from Banshui? Marshals did not say anything more. He sat on the throne and waved his hand. Old Six, go meet him personally. It's best if you can kill him on the spot. No problem, leave it to me. Tu Ren could not wait any longer. He twisted his neck and revealed a sinister smile. He led the black-clothed warriors out of the cave. Chapter 8:11. At this time, the sky was slightly bright, and dawn had just arrived. When Ji Tianxing arrived at Tranquility Mountain, this towering mountain was still shrouded in the morning fog. The mountain was covered with a lush forest, the ground was covered with green grass and vines, and there was sparkling morning dew on the branches and leaves of the flowers and plants. He hurriedly flew over, but when he arrived at the foot of the mountain, he quickly calmed down. As he rushed to the peak of the mountain, he vigilantly sized up the surroundings and silently released his spiritual sense to investigate the situation in the surroundings. The other party only asked him to arrive at Tranquility Mountain before noon, but did not say where to meet. However, according to experience, the other party would usually be at the peak of the mountain. Ji Tianxing's figure flashed like a bolt of lightning, heading straight to the peak of the mountain and passing through the dense forest as fast as lightning. Along the way, he did not notice anything unusual, nor did he see any clues. After a short 7 minutes, he flew to the peak of the mountain. Swoosh! He finally reached the peak of the mountain, and his figure flashed to a flat and empty grassland before landing. Suddenly, his spiritual sense detected that the peak of the mountain seemed to be filled with a trace of cold devil qi. He immediately stopped and frowned, and at the same time he released his spiritual sense to investigate the surroundings. There's actually the aura of the devil clan. Could it be that the group of black-clothed men who intercepted Father were really devils in disguise? He had already dealt with the devil clan many times, so he was very familiar and sensitive to the aura of the devil clan. After detecting the existence of the devil qi, he immediately realized that the people who intercepted his father this time were most likely devils. Damnable devils, they're really too arrogant. All of them deserve to die. He was extremely furious in his heart, and he shouted with a murderous aura. At this moment, above the dense forest in front, 4 figures suddenly flew out. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, the 4 figures flew over the forest and landed on the empty grassland. Ji Tianxing focused his eyes and saw that the leader of the 4 powerhouses was a devil clan powerhouse who was 3 meters tall, had a head full of red hair, and wore a scarlet cloak. This person was the devil commander Tu Ren, and behind him were 3 other Sky Origin Stage powerhouses who were all wearing black clothes and masks, looking no different from humans. Subsequently, another 12 black-clothed men flew out of the dense forest, and all of them had the strength of the 7th or 8th level of the Origin Core stage. The 12 elite powerhouses came to the grassland, and they all held their weapons and spread out, forming a circle and surrounded Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing's gaze swept across the black-clothed men, and he immediately understood that these black-clothed men who intercepted his father's murderer and were devils in disguise as devils in disguise. At this moment, the demon commander Tu Ren, who was the leader, sized up Ji Tianxing with a cold gaze and sneered mockingly. You're Ji Tianxing? What bullshit sword god successor? Ji Tianxing's face was as cold as ice. He looked at him indifferently and said disdainfully, "You ugly and disgusting red-haired monster, what are you?" The devil commander Tu Ren was not angry. Instead, the sneer on his face deepened, and his eyes were filled with pity. Swoosh! Ben Shui heard a rumor in the Central State praising you as the #1 genius of the human race. I didn't expect the so-called #1 genius of the human race to be like this. Ben Shui is thoroughly disappointed. Brat, perk up your ears and listen carefully. This marshal is one of the 6 great demon marshals under the Devil Emperor, the world-famous Bloody Hand Butcher, a demon marshal who butchers people. Devil Commander? Butcher? Ji Tianxing frowned, and his eyes became even more solemn and gloomy. When he saw Devil Commander Tu Ren, he already sensed that Tu Ren's strength had reached the soul-tempering stage. However, he did not expect this devil powerhouse who wore a scarlet cloak and a dragon skin skirt to be one of the 6 great devil commanders. God Master Heiyu had told him something in the Black Feather Palace. During the 1,000 years when the Devil Emperor was suppressed, the reason why the devil race was able to hide in the northern desert and stubbornly defend themselves was because of the support of the 6 great devil commanders. The 6 great devil commanders were all soul-tempering stage powerhouses. They were the marshals in charge of millions of devil armies. They were very powerful and ruthless. Recalling God Master Heiyu's words, Ji Tianxing looked at Tu Ren with disdain. I thought the devil commanders were some amazing powerhouses. I didn't expect them to be trash like you. Tu Ren, I guess you must be the weakest of the 6 great devil commanders to make up the numbers. Ji Tianxing's words mercilessly poked at Tu Ren's sore spot, causing his expression to change drastically. His eyes burned with rage. Because he guessed right. Tu Ren was just a weakling. One of the 6 great devil commanders had operated in the northern desert for hundreds of years, and controlled an incomparably large force. That devil commander did not see the return of the Devil Emperor, so he became disloyal. He gave himself the title of Devil Emperor and set up his own sect. With one of the 6 great devil commanders missing and a new Devil Emperor setting up his own sect, the hearts of the devil race in the northern desert were scattered, and the situation was chaotic. Coincidentally, Tu Ren had advanced to the soul-tempering stage. After many battles and competitions, he finally became the new devil commander, ranked last. Little bastard, you're courting death. Tu Ren roared with rage. His whole body burned with blood-red flames, and his killing intent soared to the sky. Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianxing was even more certain of his guess. The sneer on his face deepened. He stared coldly at Tu Ren and shouted angrily, "Where's my father? Hand him over." Tu Ren temporarily suppressed his anger and grinned cruelly, "Little bastard, you want to save your father? Easy, use your life to exchange for it." As he spoke, he waved his hand and ordered the 15 black-clothed men, "Kill him." The 15 black-clothed martial artists immediately waved their swords and sabers, using violent killing moves. They surrounded Ji Tianxing from all directions. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Shadows of swords and sabers blotted out the sky. The surging black fog and blood light instantly covered the sky within 1,000 meters, and the grassland was covered in darkness. The 15 black-clothed men used the devil race's secret arts with all their might. Since Ji Tianxing had already arrived at Mount Tranquility, they no longer needed to hide their identities. They only needed to carry out their orders. "You're all demon bastards. Today, I'll make you pay with your blood." Ji Tianxing's killing intent surged. He shouted coldly and immediately waved his palms to display his sword skills, fighting with the black-clothed men. The 24 guards of the Heavenly Stellar Domain Chief's mansion were killed by these black-clothed men. Jiang Chen was also severely injured by them. Ji Tianxing was filled with rage. He used his secret sword skills with all his might. Shatter the mountains and rivers. His whole body emitted a 5-colored light that soared to the sky, covering 1,000 meters in radius. His figure became blurry and flickered randomly within 1,000 meters, leaving hundreds of afterimages. The black-clothed men could not touch him at all. Moreover, he waved his palms and released tens of thousands of 5-colored sword lights, sealing off the entire area. Chapter 8:12. Boom! Amidst the deafening explosion, tens of thousands of sword lights exploded at the same time. At that moment, the explosion shook the universe, and a dazzling 5-colored spiritual light covered the entire mountain peak. The area within a few thousand meters was turned into ruins by the violent and fierce sword chi, and a deep pit was formed on the ground. The entire Tranquility Mountain shook violently, and more than 10 wide gullies were formed on the mountain. The mountain peak was a mess, and it took a long time for the dust that covered the sky to dissipate. Ji Tianxing performed this sword technique with all his strength, and instantly, 12 of the 15 black-clothed men disappeared. Those 12 Yuan Dan stage elites, under the bombardment of tens of thousands of sword lights, were directly turned into ashes, and not even a complete corpse was left. Only the 3 Sky Origin Stage Level 5 and 6 Demon Kings were lucky enough to block most of the sword chi and survived. However, they were also heavily injured, and their black robes had long been torn into rags. Their bodies were covered in blood and crisscrossed wounds. In their heavily injured state, they could no longer maintain their human forms, and immediately reverted to their original forms, which were 3 ferocious demonic beasts that were 10 meters tall. Ji Tianxing stood with his hands behind his back, looking indifferent as he stood in the sky, not a speck of dust on his body. 3,000 meters in front of him, Demon General Tu Ren was also standing in the sky, staring at him with his eyes wide open. Just now, after Tu Ren ordered the Demon Kings and Demon Generals under his command to attack, he leisurely flew into the sky, ready to watch the battle. Although he was arrogant and didn't put Ji Tianxing in his eyes, he wasn't reckless or impulsive. He did not know Ji Tianxing well, so he let the Demon Kings and Demon Generals attack Ji Tianxing first. While Ji Tianxing was fighting with the Demon Kings, he could also observe Ji Tianxing's weaknesses and flaws, and gain a deeper understanding of him. The most important reason was that as a Demon General with a high status, why would he need to personally deal with a Sky Origin Stage human brat? However, he had never expected that Ji Tianxing would be able to instantly kill 12 Devil Generals and severely injure 3 Devil Kings after exchanging just one move with the Devil Kings and Devil Generals. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Was Ji Tianxing really only at Sky Origin Stage Level 7? If he did not see it with his own eyes, Tu Ren would not dare to believe this result. After the great shock, his eyes and expression became gloomy, and he stopped looking down on Jian Wushuang. Little bastard, you really surprised Ben Shuai. No wonder so many Demon Kings came to Middle State to deal with you, and none of them succeeded. Tu Ren glared at Ji Tianxing with blood-red flames burning in his eyes. His murderous aura soared to the sky. Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly and said in a cold voice, Tu Ren, let me give you a piece of advice. Hand over my father obediently, and I'll forget about what happened today. Otherwise, you and your dog slaves will all be buried here. Hearing his imposing and domineering words, Tu Ren was so angry that he laughed. Pa, what an arrogant little bastard. You really don't know what's good for you. Ben Shuai has been in the northern desert for hundreds of years. He is in charge of millions of demon army. He has killed countless human insects. Since you are so eager to die, Ben Shuai will fulfill your wish. Tu Ren bellowed furiously. He immediately waved both of his palms and unleashed an earth-shattering blood-red light towards Ji Tianxing. Blood slaughter purgatory. The dark red blood light covered the sky and covered a radius of 10 miles. Suddenly, the sky and earth became a blood purgatory, sealed by the boundless blood light. Only blood was left between the sky and earth. The endless blood water was rolling and surging, creating huge waves. The shocking waves of blood carried a violent power and a strange corrosive power. They kept rushing towards Ji Tianxing, trying to drown him in the blood sea. There was also a formless soul power that kept eroding his soul. His mind was blurred, and his consciousness was in chaos. Thousands of images appeared in his mind. There was a tidal wave of demon army, breaking into human cities, massacring human villages, and brutally killing hundreds of thousands of human civilians. Ji Tianxing knew very well that this blood slaughter purgatory was a domain formed by Tu Ren's soul secret technique. The mark of a soul refinement expert was to be able to use a domain. They could use their own magic power to seal an area and control it. He was in the blood slaughter purgatory domain. Not only was his movement restricted, his strength was weakened. Even his soul and will were affected. This was the power of a domain. In the blood slaughter purgatory, Tu Ren was the ruler of this domain. He was an almost invincible existence. Ha, little bastard. You have been sealed by Ben Shuai's domain. Today, you will not be able to escape. You will die without a doubt. You will turn into blood and enter Ben Shuai's blood sea. At the peak of the blood sea, there was a mountain of white bones. Tu Ren crossed his arms in front of his chest and stood proudly at the peak of the white bone mountain. He looked down at Ji Tianxing, who was sinking in the blood sea. Other than the two of them, There were 3 other Sky Origin Realm Demon Kings in this Blood Sea domain. The 3 of them were heavily injured, but they were moving in the Blood Sea, absorbing the power of the Blood Sea with all their might to quickly recover from their injuries. Ji Tianxing saw with his own eyes that the wounds on the hideous bodies of the 3 Demon Kings were healing at a rapid speed. After a while, the 3 Demon Kings stepped on the Blood Sea and sped over. Waving their 10-meter-long heavy swords, they slashed out shocking saber light and sword light. Ji Tianxing immediately circulated his power and broke free of the Blood Sea's restraint and seal. He flew above the Blood Sea and fought with the 3 Demon Kings. Not only did he have to endure the attacks of the 3 Demon Kings, he was also suppressed by the power of the Blood Slaughter Purgatory. He could only use 60% of his strength, and his speed was also reduced by half. And the 3 Demon Kings had not only recovered from their injuries, their strength had also increased. Their strength had doubled. In such a situation, Ji Tianxing exchanged 2 moves with the 3 Demon Kings. He could only push them back and was unable to kill them. Even if he used all his strength to use the Golden Emperor Slash and heavily injured one of the Demon Kings. But the Demon King fell into the Blood Sea and jumped out of it not long after, its injuries healed. Seeing this result, Ji Tianxing immediately understood. In this Blood Sea domain, not only did Tu Ren's strength increase, the fighting strength of the 3 Demon Kings also increased. They are not afraid of being injured. If I want to kill them, I can only use an ultimate killing move to completely destroy them. He understood the ins and outs of the Blood Slaughter Purgatory and did not hesitate. He immediately used his trump card, White Heart Demon Suppression Art. He shouted in a cold and dignified voice. He circulated this demon suppression art with all his strength, and his body lit up with a sacred golden light. His entire body was wrapped in the golden light, like a golden armored war god, sacred and mighty. Even if the Blood Sea bobbed up and down and the blood waves surged to the sky, it could not hide the brilliance of the golden light. When the 3 Demon Kings charged over with murderous intent and surrounded him without fear of death, his eyes shone with a cold and dignified light as he shouted in a low voice. Chapter 8:13. As Ji Tianxing spoke, he waved his palms and released a dazzling divine golden light. The omnipresent holy golden light condensed into 300-meter-long golden light swords. Swish, swish, swish. Under Ji Tianxing's control, the 3 giant divine swords, which were imbued with an overwhelming aura of righteousness, flew towards the 3 Demon Kings. Bam, bam, bam. With a deafening sound, the attacks of the 3 demon lords were shattered by the demon vanquishing swords. Immediately after, the 3 demon lords were also pierced by the demon vanquishing swords. Wrapped in golden light, they flew back as fast as lightning. Before they could fall into the Blood Sea, their 10-meter-tall bodies exploded, smashed into pieces by the demon vanquishing swords. Ji Tianxing's strength far surpassed the 3 demon lords. The pure heart demon subduing art he used was a divine technique that specialized in restraining the demon race. Of course, its power was extraordinary. He used this move to kill the 3 demon lords on the spot. Not even their corpses were left. The broken pieces of the corpses that covered the sky were like dust that drifted into the boundless sea of blood. Seeing this, on the White Bone Mountain at the peak of the Blood Sea, Demon Commander Tu Ren's expression changed. His eyes were filled with shock. Bastard! How is this possible? The 3 demon lords were strengthened by Benshuai's purgatory power and were almost immortal. What sword technique did he use to dispel demon power and kill the 3 demon lords in an instant? At this moment, Demon Commander Tu Ren did not underestimate Ji Tianxing at all. Instead, he felt a deep sense of fear towards Ji Tianxing's marvelous sword technique. He was a soul refinement realm expert. Of course, he could see that Ji Tianxing's sword technique contained a divine aura. It was the nemesis of the evil demon Qi. Little bastard, you're not bad. You're worthy of Benshuai killing you personally. Demon Commander Tu Ren stood at the peak of the White Bone Mountain, his scarlet cape fluttering in the wind. He stared coldly at Ji Tianxing, finally enraged and filled with killing intent. He was no longer arrogant and conceited. He was going to treat Ji Tianxing seriously and go all out. Blood sea overflows the heavens, unparalleled demonic might. Tu Ren waved his palms, releasing an invisible mysterious power from his body, controlling the entire bloody massacre purgatory. As Ji Tianxing roared, the entire blood sea purgatory surged, releasing a power that could suppress heaven and earth, pressing down on Ji Tianxing. Not only that, but more than a dozen giant waves that were 1,000 meters tall were condensed from the sea of blood, and with the power to destroy everything, they crashed toward Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was suddenly suppressed by the domain power, and he kept falling. He was about to fall into the blood sea. A few thousand-meter-tall waves were crashing at him from all directions, trying to smash him into smithereens. At this critical moment, he did not panic. He maintained a calm mind, and the golden light that flickered all over his body became even more dazzling. A pure heart, free from filth, free from the true self. He silently chanted the white heart devil subduing spell in his heart, and his power began to circulate in his body. A sacred golden light shot up into the sky from his body. In just a few breaths of time, he dissolved the suppression of the blood sea purgatory with the power of the pure heart demon subduing art. Since then, with the protection of the white heart demon subduing art and the sacred golden light, he was no longer suppressed by the power of the blood sea purgatory. Suddenly, without the pressure of Mount Tai, he only felt his body relax, as if he could fly into the sky. His combat power had recovered to its peak, and his movement was no longer hindered. His speed was also at its peak. When the giant waves of blood came crashing down from all directions, he used all his power without hesitation, broke through the blockade of the blood waves, and flew into the sky above the blood sea. Boom, boom, boom. A few thousand-meter-tall waves of blood suddenly missed their target, and they crashed into the blood sea with earth-shattering sounds. The demon marshal's human slaughter killer move missed. He immediately showed a shocked expression. At this moment, Ji Tianxing stared at him coldly and sternly. He waved his hands and formed a mysterious seal, using a sacred secret technique. Demon Sealing Palm. Endless golden light gathered in his palms, forming a giant golden palm that was as big as a palace and had a radius of 100 meters. The giant palm flashed with a blinding golden light, and it emitted a sacred aura that could suppress all evil. It was like the wrath of a god, and it was punishing him. Kill! Ji Tianxing's voice was as loud as a bell as he roared. He activated the gigantic golden palm that blotted out the sky and slammed it towards Demon Commander Tu Ren with all his might. Back when he was breaking the blood-dissipating demon curse, he used this secret technique in the depths of his soul to fight the ancient heart demon. Today, he used this secret technique for the second time, but it was to deal with a real demon, a demon commander in the soul refinement realm. Ji Tianxing was not sure if he could defeat Tu Ren, who was in the first level of the soul refinement realm. But he knew that the white heart demon subduing art was a divine technique that could suppress demons, so he was full of confidence. When the destructive demon sealing palm fell from the sky, the demon commander Tu Ren's face was full of shock, and his eyes were full of fear. But he had never truly fought with Ji Tianxing, so how could he be afraid of dodging? He could not afford to lose face. Little bastard, you're courting death. The demon commander Tu Ren roared angrily and waved his palms with all his might, sending out two giant bloody palm shadows towards the demon sealing palm. Bang! The three giant palms collided, and a loud explosion shook the 9 heavens. In the blink of an eye, the two gigantic blood-red palm shadows that were as large as mountains were smashed to pieces, turning into countless blood-red fragments that scattered into the sea of blood. The sky above the blood sea turned into a world of golden light, dazzling everyone's eyes. The violent impact spread out in all directions, creating a bottomless pit in the blood sea and stirring up waves of blood. Ji Tianxing saw with his own eyes that the demon commander Tu Ren was hit by the demon sealing palm and flew out in a sorry state, crashing into the edge of the blood sea domain. Bang! With a muffled sound, the demon commander Tu Ren was bounced back by the domain and fell into the blood sea powerlessly. Ji Tianxing was filled with joy, and his spirit was lifted. He clenched his fist and shouted, "The White Heart Demon subduing art is indeed extraordinary, and its power is actually so terrifying." This was the first time he used the White Heart Demon subduing art to kill an enemy. The result was surprising. With his strength of the 7th level of the Sky Origin Realm, he could actually send 2 Ren, who was in the 1st level of the Soul Refinement Realm, flying with 1 palm. This was absolutely a shocking and unprecedented miracle. In fact, when Ji Tianxing killed Duanmu Huang's soul was severely injured and his strength was greatly reduced, which was equivalent to the strength of a LV1 soul refining stage cultivator. At that time, he was only LV6 Sky Origin stage cultivator, and he used all his strength and his ultimate skill to kill Duanmu Huang. Now that he was even stronger, reaching LV7 Sky Origin stage, of course he was qualified to fight a LV1 soul refining stage cultivator. Especially, he used the White Heart Demon subduing art, which could restrain the power of the demons, which increased his battle strength. The demon commander Tu Ren struggled in the Blood Sea for a while, and then flew back to the sky in a sorry state. This was too embarrassing. As a demon commander, he was actually slapped away by a Sky Origin stage human brat. This was absolutely a great humiliation. He glared at Ji Tianxing with eyes full of hatred, and shouted furiously, "Ji Tianxing, you lowly worm, how can you be a match for Ben Shuai? Ben Shuai will kill you and burn your bones to ashes." Chapter 8:14. Demon Commander Tu Ren's internal organs had been injured by the demon's sealing palm. Blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth and nostrils. His red hair was disheveled, and his cloak hung crookedly by his side. His aura was somewhat chaotic and berserk. He looked rather pathetic. Even though his injuries were not serious and did not affect his ability to fight. But this was too humiliating for him. If the Northern Desert Demon race knew of this scene, he would lose all face as a demon commander. He would be ridiculed by all the demons in the world. The thick humiliation and anger caused him to go completely mad. Ji Tianxing stood above the Blood Sea, his expression cold. He stared at him sharply and shouted, "Tu Ren, I'll give you one last chance. Hand over my father, or I'll kill you today." "With a worm like you? In your dreams?" Demon Commander Tu Ren roared furiously, and a bloody light surged out of his body. "Blood Slaughter True Body, appear." His figure was swallowed up by the boundless bloody light and became blurry, making it impossible to see clearly. In the blink of an eye, the dazzling bloody light expanded to a radius of 1,000 meters. A giant demon beast as large as a mountain with a ferocious appearance appeared. This dark red giant beast was like a toad magnified millions of times. Its entire body was covered in dark red lumps and pustules. It had a flat and wide mouth, like a dark red abyss. Moreover, there were a dozen rows of sharp spikes on its back and under its ribs. It also had 6 broad black wings on its back. Its scarlet eyes, as large as a house, revealed an extremely venomous gaze as it stared at Ji Tianxing. It opened its bloody mouth and shouted angrily, "Ji Tianxing, you were able to force Ben Shuai to reveal his true body. You should be proud that you were killed by Ben Shuai today." When it finished speaking, it flapped its 6 broad wings and fanned the Blood Sea. The power of the Blood Sea domain instantly exploded, turning into a bloody stream of light that could crush the world and destroy everything. The boundless Blood Sea also gathered into tens of thousands of enormous bloody water pillars that shot towards Ji Tianxing. It was as if a blood-red inferno had descended from the sky, and tens of thousands of blood-red flood dragons had soared into the sky, charging forward fearlessly. Ji Tianxing was like a feather in the midst of blood and fire, about to be incinerated into nothingness in an instant. Not to mention that he was only a Sky Origin stage cultivator. Even a city with a radius of 100 miles would be turned into ruins under the attack of the thousands of dragons. However, Ji Tianxing's expression did not change in the slightest in the face of such a terrifying ultimate move. When the sky was filled with blood-red flames and tens of thousands of blood-red water pillars came crashing down, he did not hesitate to use the seal of mountains and rivers. Suppressing mountains and rivers. He let out a low grunt and channeled his true chi into the seal of mountains and rivers. Instantly, the seal of mountains and rivers expanded to the size of a house, emitting a dazzling golden light. Previously, when he was fighting with Duanmu Huang, the power of the seal of mountains and rivers was almost exhausted. Its light was dim, and its defensive power was weak. After half a month of recuperation, the power of the seal of mountains and rivers had naturally recovered by 80%, and it shone with golden light again. Soul-level magic treasures were so miraculous. As long as they were not severely damaged, they could automatically absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to recover their power. Moreover, this seal of mountains and rivers was a high-grade soul-level magic treasure personally refined by the emperor himself. Its effect was naturally extraordinary. Boom, boom, boom. Boundless blood-red flames and water pillars bombarded the seal of mountains and rivers like a violent storm, producing a deafening explosion. The seal of mountains and rivers swayed and trembled in the midst of the blood-red flames and light flames, its golden light flickering unsteadily. However, no matter how powerful the Blood Sea domain was, it could not break the defense of the seal of mountains and rivers. Ji Tianxing, who was hiding in the seal of mountains and rivers, was safe and sound. With Demon Commander Tu Ren's level 1 soul refining stage strength, he wanted to destroy the seal of mountains and rivers? Absolutely impossible. After a long time, the earth-shattering explosion gradually stopped. The blood-red light and waves that covered the sky scattered in all directions and gradually calmed down. Demon Commander Tu Ren flew in the sky and looked down at the seal of mountains and rivers from above, still accumulating more power. Swoosh! The seal of mountains and rivers suddenly shrunk and Ji Tianxing's figure appeared, unharmed. He stared coldly at Tu Ren. Looking at its ugly body that was as huge as a mountain, he shouted in a deep voice, "Tu Ren, since you're so stubborn, I'll kill you first, then save my father." Burning Sky Palm. He slowly raised his left arm and activated the power of the Scarlet Flame True Fire, causing his arm to be as red as magma. He activated the endless Scarlet Flame True Fire, condensing it into a huge flaming palm that covered the sky and fiercely slammed towards Tu Ren. In that instant, the monstrous flames lit up the entire Blood Sea, causing the dark red blood water to evaporate into steam, forming a thick fog. Tu Ren hurriedly flapped his 6 wings and flew away as fast as lightning to dodge. However, the burning sky palm locked onto his aura and caught up to him in the blink of an eye, slamming into him. Bang! Tu Ren's abdomen, which was covered with a layer of black carapace, was hit by the burning sky palm on the spot. A few wide cracks appeared and black-red demon blood spurted out. The wound was charred black and emitted black smoke. The incomparable pain caused him to let out a heart-wrenching scream. He was sent flying by the burning sky palm, crashing into the edge of the Blood Sea domain. The barrier made of blood-red light rumbled under the impact, and numerous cracks appeared on it. Ji Tianxing did not hesitate, taking advantage of the victory to pursue and use the Pure Heart Demon Suppression art, releasing the strongest demon suppression ultimate kill. The Great Tao is flawed, the Pure Heart is untainted, the 3 pristine Qi transformation, the mysterious Sky Demon suppression. He stood above the Blood Sea with a solemn expression and shouted in a low voice, waving his palms to form a mysterious seal. At this moment his entire body was emitting a golden light, as if a god had descended. As he crazily channeled his energy, the golden light emitted from his body became more and more resplendent. Finally, after 10 breaths, his energy had accumulated to its peak. He suddenly opened his arms and slammed towards Tu Ren with all his might. In that instant, endless sacred golden light burst out without reservation, filling the entire Blood Sea domain. The vast and boundless Blood Sea, the demon Qi that filled the domain, and the blood light and flames that descended from the sky were all purified by the sacred golden light. The descent of a god, the retreat of evil, the vast golden light, and the disappearance of the demon Qi. As a result, millions of golden spirit flowers bloomed in the sky and fell from the sky. Under Ji Tianxing's feet, millions of resplendent golden lotuses bloomed rapidly. Flowers fell from the sky, golden lotuses bloomed from the ground. Kaboom! Tu Ren's bloody massacre purgatory finally could not hold on and exploded on the spot. All of the blood sea and demonic chi disappeared without a trace. Tu Ren's soul domain was destroyed on the spot. He suffered a backlash from the domain's power and spat out blood. The sacred power of the demon suppression ultimate kill also heavily injured him, causing his power to drop by 40%. He fell onto the mountain peak covered in blood, struggling and rolling in pain. Furthermore, under his heavy injuries, his power was quickly draining away. He had no choice but to withdraw his original demon body and transform back into his 3-meter-tall human form. Chapter 8:15. Swoosh! The bloody light and demonic chi that filled the sky disappeared. The peak of Mount Tranquility finally regained its clarity. The sun had just risen. The golden sunlight shone on the peak of the mountain and reflected on the devastated ruins. Ji Tianxing stood in the sky. His white robe was as clean as new. His whole body exuded a sacred and majestic aura. In the deep pit of the ruins under his feet, there was a demon covered in blood and mud. It was Tu Ren, the demon commander. Tu Ren was completely defeated. His divine soul domain was forcibly broken, and his divine soul suffered a backlash, which caused him to suffer severe injuries. Soul injuries were the most difficult to heal. He would need at least 30 years of seclusion to recover to his peak state. Until now, Tu Ren was rolling and wailing in pain. He still couldn't accept this reality. He was a demon commander, a spirit-refining stage warrior. How could he be seriously injured by a Sky Origin Stage Level 7 worm and lie on the ground like a dead dog? This was impossible. Since the beginning of time, nothing like this had ever happened. The difference between Sky Origin Stage and Spirit Refining Stage was like the difference between a mortal and a martial artist. How could it be so easily overcome? Tu Ren couldn't understand. Ji Tianxing was only in Sky Origin Stage. How could he perform such a sacred and powerful skill? Only a Spirit Refining Stage warrior could perform such a skill. Ji Tianxing's secret skill, golden light illumination, heavenly flowers rain, golden lotuses bloom, even a Spirit Refining Stage warrior couldn't perform such a skill. Tu Ren was completely dumbfounded. He vaguely understood. No wonder so many demon kings came to Zhongzhou, but none of them could defeat Ji Tianxing. No wonder the demon king valued Ji Tianxing so much that he gave a death order to seize his Kenshin bloodline. No wonder when the demon king was born, he was severely injured by Ji Tianxing and had to flee back to the northern desert. This kid wasn't human at all. He was a monster. A once-in-a-lifetime monster. Half an hour ago, Tu Ren boasted in front of Zhou Shuai. He swore that he would kill Ji Tianxing in 3 moves and seize the Kenshin bloodline. At that time, he was arrogant and conceited. He did not put Ji Tianxing in his eyes at all. At this moment, when he recalled what he'd said, he was instantly filled with shame and indignation, and he wished for nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. How was he going to face Marshal Zhou when he saw this? It was too humiliating. Tu Ren struggled with all his might in the soil of the deep pit. He used his power to shake off the soil on his body, wiped away the blood on his face, and looked up at the sky. As soon as he raised his head, he saw Ji Tianxing looking down at him with an indifferent expression and a powerful aura. It just so happened that the rising sun sprinkled down a bright golden light that shone on his body, making him look as dignified as a deity. Tu Ren suddenly had an illusion, as if he had seen a deity descending from the heavens. At this moment, Ji Tianxing spoke in a cold and indifferent voice. Tu Ren, hand over my father and I'll grant you a quick and painless death. Tu Ren was filled with rage, and his tone was cold as he shouted, "How arrogant! Little bastard, how dare you talk about killing Ben Shuai with your strength? Moreover, your father is not here with Ben Shuai." Ji Tianxing's pupils suddenly shrank, and a sharp cold light gushed out from his eyes. "Bastard! How dare you trick me? Where did you take my father? Speak." Tu Ren's mouth, which was full of blood, cracked into a sinister sneer. However, he didn't open his mouth to answer. Ji Tianxing's eyes were cold, and his whole body emitted a cold, murderous aura. He shouted angrily, "You're courting death." As he spoke, his whole body lit up with a bright golden light, and a violent true core aura burst out. He was about to use his ultimate move to attack Tu Ren. At this moment, a cold shout that was as gloomy as ice suddenly came from above the ruins not far away. "Ji Tianxing, if you don't want your father to die, Ben Shuai, stop." Suddenly hearing this voice, Ji Tianxing's body stiffened, and his expression changed drastically. He had no choice but to put down his raised palms. Tu Ren, who was in the deep pit, had a very complicated expression. There was a kind of relief and joy, but also a deep sense of shame and humiliation. In the next moment, a tall and burly dark purple figure flew above the ruins and stopped above the deep pit. Ji Tianxing turned his head and saw that it was a demon race elite who was more than 3 meters tall. This person was wearing a dark purple robe and had a head of purple hair. He wore a necklace of skulls around his neck, and his whole body emitted a powerful and domineering aura. Moreover, this purple-robed elite's strength had also reached the spirit cultivation realm, and his strength and aura were even stronger than Tu Ren's. Ji Tianxing immediately realized that this purple-robed elite must also be a demon commander. Damn it! There are actually 2 demon commanders? The ancient demon emperor sent 2 demon commanders to Central State to be in charge of the demonic goo. The 2 of them actually captured my father and worked together to set up this vicious trap just to deal with me. Ji Tianxing's expression changed instantly. This thought flashed through his mind, and he was both shocked and furious. He finally realized how important he was to the ancient demon emperor, and how much the ancient demon emperor hated him to the core. He stared coldly at the purple-robed demon commander and suddenly laughed coldly. "Ha! Looks like the ancient demon emperor was so badly beaten up by me that he hates and values me so much that he actually sent 2 demon commanders to deal with me." Although he was laughing coldly, Ji Tianxing's expression and eyes were not relaxed at all. Instead, they were filled with hatred and murderous intent. The purple-robed demon commander, Zhou Shuai, looked at him expressionlessly and said coldly, "No, Ji Tianxing, you are wrong. You think too highly of yourself. The one that His Majesty Demon Emperor hates and values is Sword God, not you. If you were not the successor of Kenshin, you would not even be worthy of His Majesty the Demon Emperor's attention. You are just a lowly mortal. There is no need for Ben Shuai to do anything. Any demon general can kill you." Zhou Shuai's tone was cold and calm. There was no anger in it, as if he was stating a fact. After that, he did not look at Ji Tianxing's reaction and lowered his head to look at Tu Ren, who was in the deep pit in the ruins. "Tu Ren, do you still remember what Ben Shuai told you before? Now, you should believe me, right?" Zhou Shuai did not get angry, nor did he have the intention to lecture or reprimand him. But in Tu Ren's ears, these words were so ear-piercing, like a resounding slap on his face. He was filled with shame and anger, but he could only lower his head and endure the humiliation. He could not refute at all. He naturally remembered this humiliation and hatred on Ji Tianxing. He swore to himself that he would find a chance to return it 10 times over. Ji Tianxing was too lazy to pay attention to the matter between the 2 demon commanders. He glared at Zhou Shuai and coldly shouted, "As demon commanders and spirit refinement realm experts, you dare to attack a mortal like my father. You are despicable and shameless to the extreme. I have already come as promised. Let my father go now. This is a grudge between us. It has nothing to do with my father." Zhou Shuai immediately raised an eyebrow and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. The corner of his mouth hooked up in a mocking sneer. "Ha! To us demons, despicable and shameless. Ben Shuai will only take it that you are praising Ben Shuai. Although you are very courageous and really came to the appointment alone, this marshal will not be soft-hearted." Chapter 8:16. Give me your life in exchange. Zhou Shuai's cold and dignified voice reverberated in the air above the mountain peak. Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows and stared at him coldly. His entire body was filled with a thick killing intent. He did not get angry immediately. Instead, he shouted at Zhou Shuai in a deep voice, "I know that you are here on the orders of the Devil Emperor. The Devil Emperor's target is me. Let me see my father. I want to see him safe and sound." Zhou Shuai did not speak. He raised his left hand expressionlessly. With a flash of brilliance in his palm, a crystal ball appeared out of thin air. The mysterious crystal ball was obviously a Dharma artifact. A middle-aged man in a blue robe was sealed in the crystal ball. It was Ji Changkong. When Ji Tianxing saw the appearance of the crystal ball, his pupils shrank. His gaze focused on Ji Changkong's body. Seeing that Ji Changkong was heavily injured and covered in blood, his heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, Ji Changkong was only seriously injured and was still alive for the time being. Unfortunately, Ji Tianxing's spiritual sense could not penetrate the crystal ball. He could not check on his father's injuries, nor could he send a message to his father to ask about the situation. When Ji Tianxing saw his father covered in scars and unconscious due to serious injuries, a monstrous rage surged in his heart. He stared at Zhou Shuai coldly and shouted in a deep voice, "Let my father go. I can seal my power and follow you back to the northern desert to see the Devil Emperor." Obviously, this was just a stalling tactic. As long as his father could escape danger, he would rather seal his power and follow the two devil marshals back to the northern desert. After all, he had many ways to escape. Tu Ren, who was in the deep pit in the ruins, quickly flew out of the pit and flew up to the sky to stand beside Zhou Shuai. When he heard Ji Tianxing's words, he sneered secretly and could not wait to agree. Humans are indeed weaklings who are bound by 7 emotions and 6 desires. No matter how strong this kid is, his father is in our hands. He has to obey us. After he seals his power, Ben Shuai will use thousands of methods to torture and kill him. However, what Ji Tianxing and Tu Ren did not expect was that Zhou Shuai actually shook his head and refused. He even revealed a contemptuous sneer. "Ji Tianxing, don't embarrass yourself in front of Ben Shuai with your little tricks. To the Nephilim king, only the Kenshin bloodline is useful. You are just a useless ant. Why would Ben Shuai bother to bring you back to the northern desert? Ben Shuai only needs your Kenshin blood." After saying that, Zhou Shuai waved his hand and shot out a bloody light, which flew in front of Ji Tianxing. Within the blood-red light was a dark and cold demonic sword. The demonic sword was only 2 feet long and the blade was twisted like a snake. There were mysterious and simple patterns engraved on it. It was clearly a soul-ranked magic treasure. The demonic sword floated in the air in front of Ji Tianxing. It flickered with cold demonic light and emitted a mysterious and powerful aura. Zhou Shuai played with the crystal ball in his left hand and put his right hand behind his back. He exuded a powerful and domineering aura. He sneered and said, "Ji Tianxing, Ben Shuai will give you a chance. Use that sword to kill yourself in front of Ben Shuai. Stab yourself in the heart and Ben Shuai will let your father go." Ji Tianxing frowned and secretly clenched his fists in his sleeves. He knew very well that the Nephilim had always been cunning and cruel. They would never keep any promises or honor. That demonic sword was very strange. It was most likely a magic treasure that could absorb Kenshin blood. Even if he really killed himself with the demonic sword, the Nephilim king would not let his father go. In the end, he and his father would die here. Ji Tianxing stared coldly at Zhou Shuai and asked in a deep voice, "What if I don't?" Zhou Shuai didn't get angry. The corner of his mouth curled into a sneer as he said in a sinister voice, "If you don't, then Ben Shuai will kill your father and then kill you. He will personally take out the Kenshin blood." As he said that, he clenched his left hand and squeezed the crystal ball with his 6 strong fingers. A few cracks immediately appeared on the crystal ball. The crystal ball was filled with strands of blood-red light, which turned into blood-red snakes that bit at Ji Changkong's body. The unconscious Ji Changkong was bitten by the bloody snakes and had several bloody holes on his body. Several pieces of flesh were torn off and he immediately screamed in pain. Unfortunately, he was sealed in the crystal ball. No matter how much he screamed, Ji Tianxing couldn't hear him. When Ji Tianxing saw his father being bitten by the blood-red snake and struggling in pain, he was so angry that his eyes turned blood red. Stop! You devil, stop! He clenched his fists so tightly that they creaked, and gnashed his teeth as he shouted angrily. Only then did Zhou Shuai unhurriedly loosen his 6 fingers, causing the blood snakes to disperse. He stared at Ji Tianxing with a sinister gaze and said with a mocking smile, "Ha, as expected of a father and son's deep affection. Ji Tianxing, you don't have the right to negotiate with Ben Shuai. Either you pick up that sword and commit suicide or you and your father will die together. Ben Shuai will only give you 6 breaths of time. After 6 breaths, your father will die without a doubt." As Zhou Shuai's voice fell, an invisible aura of death quietly spread out and enveloped the entire mountain peak. The air seemed to have solidified and the world seemed to have turned gray and colorless. Even the golden light of the rising sun from the east was obscured by the dark clouds that floated in from nowhere. The heavy, oppressive, austere, and deathly aura filled Ji Tianxing's heart. 1. Zhou Shuai raised his right hand and retracted a finger. Ji Tianxing stood stiffly on the spot, his eyes fixed on Zhou Shuai. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind as he racked his brain to think of a solution. There's only 6 breaths of time. How can I save my father? This demon commander is several times stronger than Tu Ren. His shrewdness and intelligence are also extremely high. He's too difficult to deal with. If I forcefully save my father, he might be killed by Zhou Shuai before I can snatch the crystal ball. I can't forcefully do it. This demon commander is even more treacherous and vicious than Tu Ren. I can't take the risk. Just as he was anxiously analyzing and deliberating, Zhou Shuai's right hand retracted a second finger. 2 breaths of time passed. Ji Tianxing's expression became more and more unsightly. The killing intent and anger in his chest were about to explode. I can't forcefully do it. Do I really have to use that devil sword to commit suicide? I can't take this risk. That devil sword is very strange. The demon commander must have prepared it long ago. At that time, even if I kill myself, my father will still die. I have to live. At this moment, Zhou Shuai retracted a 3rd finger. 3. The atmosphere became colder and colder. Heaven and earth turned gray and the sun lost its luster. There's not much time left. I have to think of a solution immediately. Ji Tianxing's heart was burning with worry. The veins on his forehead could be seen. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He thought of all kinds of solutions, including using the white heart demon subduing art, the seal of mountains and rivers, the thunderbolt spirit eyes, and other trump cards. But he realized in despair that no matter which trump card he used, he had no absolute confidence in snatching the crystal ball from Zhou Shuai's hands. Anger and despair filled Ji Tianxing's heart. He subconsciously lowered his head and looked at the mysterious and cold devil sword floating in the air in front of him. For Zhou Shuai's voice sounded again. The 4th finger retracted. There were only 2 breaths of time left. Ji Tianxing stretched out his hand with great difficulty and slowly reached for the devil sword. I don't care. I have to stabilize this demon commander first. He gritted his teeth and finally made up his mind to reach out and grab the devil sword. At this moment, a vigorous and ancient voice suddenly sounded in the depths of his mind. How can you forget me at a time like this? Do you think I don't exist? Chapter 8:17. Suddenly, a powerful voice rang in Ji Tianxing's mind. Hearing the familiar voice, the cold and arrogant tone, Lu Cheng's body shook as a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. Burial of Heaven. Without a doubt, only the Burial of Heaven could communicate with Lu Cheng's divine soul and send a voice transmission to his mind. Ji Tianxing was a little confused. Wasn't the Burial of Heaven in a deep sleep to recover his primordial qi? Why did he suddenly wake up? However, Lu Cheng only had 2 breaths of time left. He didn't have the chance to ask these trivial questions. Burial of Heaven, do you have a way? This thought flashed across his mind as he communicated with the Burial of Heaven using his soul transmission. At the same time, Zhou Shuai suddenly closed his 5th finger. 5. In Ji Tianxing's mind, The resolute and domineering voice of the burial of heaven rang out. Yes. Snatch it back. What? Ji Tianxing was stunned as this thought flashed across his mind. He was a little confused. However, before the burial of heaven could explain to him, Zhou Shuai had already closed his sixth finger. Zhou Shuai clenched all 6 fingers of his right hand into a fist. He stared coldly at Ji Tianxing as his body emitted a strong murderous intent. Time's up. Ji Tianxing, your father can die now. As he spoke, he suddenly exerted strength in his left hand and pinched the crystal ball. Crack. The crystal ball shattered on the spot and numerous cracks appeared. Once the crystal ball completely shattered, Ji Changkong, who was sealed in the crystal ball, would die without a doubt. This was a critical moment. It was a matter of life and death. Ji Tianxing didn't have time to hesitate or think too much. Relying on his trust in the burial of heaven, he unleashed all his power without holding back. He summoned the sword embryo in his body and used the sword of judgment to attack Zhou Shuai. Sword of judgment. In that instant, the sword embryo flew out at a speed faster than the speed of light. It transformed into a 10-meter-long golden sword of light, carrying with it a torrential golden flame and a pair of wings as it ruthlessly blasted towards Marshal Zhou. The dark sky was illuminated by the resplendent golden light. The frozen air was also torn apart by the incomparably sharp sword qi. Ji Tianxing erupted with his strongest strength and most terrifying potential. This strike was definitely the most powerful strike he had ever used in his entire life. In a quarter of an instant, the sword of judgment had arrived in front of Marshal Zhou and was about to hit him. Zhou Shuai seemed to have expected Ji Tianxing to make a move. He wasn't surprised or worried, and his eyes even flashed with a mocking sneer. His left hand was still holding the crystal ball tightly. Immediately, he unleashed a violent power, wanting to crush the crystal ball completely. He could not help but gasp and exclaim. Ji Tianxing stared at the black-robed figure with burning eyes. The excitement in his heart was indescribable. You are the burial of heaven? You can actually show yourself? You are the burial of heaven. Since the day he discovered the Kenshin tomb and heard the voice of the burial of heaven, he had never seen the burial of heaven. He could not imagine what the burial of heaven, a broken sword soul, would look like. Now, he finally saw it with his own eyes. The burial of heaven could actually show a human appearance. Although it was just a black-robed figure with no face or appearance, it was so powerful and mysterious that it made one's heart palpitate. Moreover, the burial of heaven's first appearance cut off the demon general's left hand and snatched back the crystal ball. Ji Tianxing was still immersed in excitement. His heart was surging and he could not calm down. The burial of heaven did not waste any time. He cast a mysterious spell with both hands and unlocked the seal on the crystal ball. Swoosh! The crystal ball turned into millions of silver starlight and instantly collapsed and dissipated. Ji Tianxing's figure appeared and immediately returned to his normal size. He was wrapped in a ball of starlight and was suspended in front of Ji Tianxing. He had been seriously injured and unconscious for a long time. His body was dripping with blood, and there were more than a dozen bloody holes that were so deep that bones could be seen. Ji Tianxing immediately came back to his senses. He stretched out his arms and hugged his unconscious father. He was about to use his greenwood spiritual qi to heal his father's injuries. However, Tu Ren had already come back to his senses. He roared angrily and released a monstrous blood-red light toward Ji Tianxing. In the sky 1,000 meters away, the Zhou Shuai also flew back in a sorry state. He waved his palms furiously and cast a secret spell with terrifying power. Seeing this, the burial of heaven warned Ji Tianxing and rushed toward the Zhou Shuai to meet the attack head-on. Chapter 8:18. Hearing burial of heaven's voice in his mind, Ji Tianxing's expression changed. Burial of heaven's words had always been short and powerful, and he had long been used to it. Although burial of heaven did not say much, just a dozen words, he instantly understood one thing. Although burial of heaven appeared and cut off the demon marshal's left hand and took back the crystal ball, It seems incomparably powerful. But it is not a body of flesh and blood after all, and its vitality has not recovered. It may not be able to hold on for long, and it may not be able to defeat the two demon marshals. Now that we have rescued Father and achieved our goal, there is no need to tangle with the two demon marshals. Leaving Peaceful Mountain as soon as possible is the right way. As for today's grudge, there will be plenty of opportunities to take revenge in the future. These thoughts flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind, and he immediately made up his mind. He hurriedly took out the seal of mountains and rivers, and sent the unconscious Ji Changkong into the seal of mountains and rivers space. As long as the seal of mountains and rivers was not destroyed, Ji Changkong would be fine. After doing this, he hurriedly put away the seal of mountains and rivers, and raised his head to look at the sky. He saw that Burial of Heaven was already fighting with Zhuoshui and Tu Ren. Zhuoshui and Tu Ren's attacks were incomparably ferocious, and the demon race's secret technique set off a huge wave of bloody light that covered the sky and earth, releasing a black fog of demon chi that covered the sun. Zhuoshui, in particular, was more than twice as strong as Tu Ren, and his attacks were incomparably fierce. He held the dark and mysterious demon sword in his hand, and slashed out thousands of bloody swords that covered half of the mountain peak. Even though Ji Tianxing was relatively far away, he was still intimidated by the bloody sword's sword chi that filled the sky. He felt a great pressure, and had to circulate his true essence to form a shield. Burial of Heaven's figure constantly flashed in the sky, like a black phantom, light as if it was weightless, and came and went without a trace, without a sound. Its control of the battle had reached a level of meticulous detail, which made Ji Tianxing incomparably shocked. It was aware of every giant sword and every ray of bloody light that was slashing at it from all directions. When the giant swords of bloody light slashed down like a rain of arrows, it was still calm and unhurried. It slipped through the gaps between the countless sword lights by a hair's breadth. At first glance, it looked as if its illusory body was not afraid of the sword light or the attacks of the secret arts at all. It could move around freely. But in reality, it had clearly seen through the flaws in the attacks of the two great demon commanders, and escaped from the encirclement through these flaws. It was now contending with the two great demon commanders. After all, it was the soul of the divine sword. In its life, it had experienced countless bloody battles and fought against countless divine weapons and peerless powerhouses. Its grasp of the details of the battle and its control of the situation on the battlefield had almost reached a perfect level. The violent attacks of the two great devil marshals missed and bombarded the majestic Tranquility Mountain, immediately blasting the entire Tranquility Mountain into pieces. Even the thousands of Zhang Tall Mountain collapsed into countless pieces, rumbling and collapsing into ruins. Endless clouds of dust rose into the air, covering the sky within a radius of tens of miles. In the demon cave inside the mountain, there were originally a few black-clothed demon generals guarding the cave. After the Tranquility Mountain was blasted into ruins, those few demon generals were also unlucky. They were completely unable to resist and were blasted into dregs. Fortunately, Ji Tianxing was strong enough to withstand the destructive aftershocks of the battle and come out unscathed. Burial of Heaven was facing the attacks of the two great demon commanders alone. It was already defending more than attacking, and its strength was getting weaker and weaker. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing hurriedly flew towards the battlefield, silently approaching the two great demon commanders. He wanted to take the opportunity to launch a surprise attack and help Burial of Heaven out of its predicament. Previously, he had used the Sword of Judgment. Although it had hit Zhuoshui, it had not been able to injure him. This made him understand that Zhuoshui was too strong, and definitely not someone he could deal with. Even if he used a sneak attack, it would be very difficult to injure Zhuoshui. Therefore, his goal was to slaughter people. White Heart Demon Suppression Art. Demon Slaying Sword. He channeled the White Heart Demon Suppression Art with all his might, accumulating the majestic true essence in his body. His entire body lit up with a dazzling golden light, condensing into a sacred golden sword that was 10 meters long. He suddenly let out a low roar, activating the dazzling sacred giant sword and charging towards Tu Ren. Tu Ren was attacking Burial of Heaven with all his strength. Even if he sensed that someone was ambushing him from behind and realized that something was wrong, it was too late to dodge. At the critical moment, he actually used an ultimate secret technique. His entire body surged with soaring blood flames, condensing into an oval-shaped shield. Blood Flame Shield. Just as the Blood Flame Shield was successfully condensed, the demon-slaying sword, carrying a sacred and overwhelming power, fiercely struck it. Boom! Amidst a deafening explosion, the Blood Flame Shield was blasted apart, bursting into bloody fragments that filled the sky. Tu Ren was blown away on the spot. While he was still in midair, he had already opened his mouth and spat out blood. A huge bloody hole appeared on his chest, and the black bones inside could be clearly seen. Unfortunately, the sword was slightly crooked and did not hit his heart. It only severely injured him. Of course, for a spirit-refining realm expert like Tu Ren, even if his heart was shattered, he would not die on the spot. Ji Tianxing was secretly delighted that he had severely injured Tu Ren in one move, but he did not follow up with another attack. He immediately waved his palms, forming a mysterious seal, and used the Demon Sealing Palm, fiercely slamming it towards Zhuai. Demon Sealing Palm. Boundless vital essence gushed out from his palms, condensing into a giant golden palm that was dozens of meters wide and as large as a house. The Demon Sealing Palm, carrying a dazzling golden light and sacred power, descended from the sky and slammed towards Zhuai. Ji Tianxing did not expect this palm to injure Zhuai. He only hoped that it could force him to retreat and relieve the pressure on Burial of Heaven. Zhuai was attacking Burial of Heaven with all his might. When he sensed the sacred giant palm coming towards him, his expression turned solemn, and a cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. "Little bastard, how dare you sneak attack Shuai? You're courting death." Zhuai roared with murderous intent. He immediately waved his left palm, sending out a giant bloody palm to meet the Demon Sealing Palm head-on. It was only then that Ji Tianxing realized that Zhuai's severed left hand had reformed. On the surface, there was nothing wrong with the left hand, as if it had never been severed. This scene shocked Ji Tianxing, and gave him a deeper understanding of Zhuai's strength. Bang! The Demon Sealing Palm and the bloody palm collided fiercely, exploding with a loud bang that shook the sky and spread for hundreds of miles. In that instant, the two giant palms collapsed at the same time, bursting into brilliant fragments that blotted out the sky. Ji Tianxing's Demon Sealing Palm was easily neutralized by Zhuai. He was shocked, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. My Pure Heart Demon Suppression Art is a spell that specifically restrains the demon race. He actually neutralized it so easily? How could this guy's strength be so terrifying? At this moment, Burial of Heaven finally seized the opportunity. Its illusory figure flashed, and it teleported 1,000 meters away, appearing behind Zhuai. Swoosh! It waved its left arm, and a dazzling cold light slashed towards Zhuai's back. It was a sword light. Chapter 8:19. It was a sword light that was not earth-shattering, but it was so cold and sharp that it could steal one's soul. The sword light was too fast, and no one could block it. Even Zhuai was no exception. Bang! The sword light bloomed, and with a muffled explosion, Zhuai was sent flying, letting out a painful scream. Ah! That sudden scream was filled with shock and anger. A half-meter-long sword wound appeared on Zhuai's back. The wound was so deep that it reached his bone marrow, and even broke a few demon bones. Dark purple demon blood gushed out like spring water, soaking his dark purple robe. The powerful impact sent Zhuai flying 10 miles away, crashing into the ruins of Mount Serenity. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing was secretly delighted and excited. This was the second time he saw Burial of Heaven make a move and use that mysterious sword light. The first sword cut off Zhuai's wrist and took back the crystal ball. The second sword strike had heavily injured Zhuai and sent him flying. Ji Tianxing thought, what kind of sword technique is Burial of Heaven? When will I be able to cultivate it? However, Burial of Heaven did not take advantage of the situation to pursue him. Its black robe became even more hazy and blurry, and its aura weakened a lot. Obviously, that sword just now had used up a lot of its energy. Swoosh! Its figure flashed, and it teleported back to Ji Tianxing's side, disappearing into thin air. Obviously, it had returned to the Kenshin tomb. At the same time, its voice sounded in Ji Tianxing's mind. Take this opportunity to escape. Ji Tianxing could hear that Burial of Heaven's cold and dignified voice contained a trace of urgency. He did not have time to think, and immediately turned to flee, flying into the distant sky. Swoosh! He flapped the wings condensed from Kenshin's battle robe and turned into a golden stream of light, streaking across the sky as fast as lightning. But he had only escaped 20 miles away when Tu Ren and the demon general came out of the ruins, roaring angrily as they pursued him. Ji Tianxing, don't even think about escaping. Today, you can't escape even if you have wings. The two demon generals burned with bloody flames and turned into two blood-colored streams of light, streaking across the sky at an extremely fast speed, chasing Ji Tianxing to the north. With every breath that passed, the distance between them and Ji Tianxing narrowed. Even though the two demon commanders were heavily injured, in their fury, they ignored the consequences and used a secret technique. In order to capture Ji Tianxing and complete the mission given by the ancient Fiend Emperor, they did not hesitate to exhaust their powers and used the Fiend clan's secret technique to raise their flying speed to the maximum. Ji Tianxing ran for his life for a while. When he saw the two demon marshals getting closer and closer, he immediately became anxious. Looks like I can only sword Kinesis sword. He gritted his teeth and activated the sword embryo with all his might, transforming it into a 3-meter-long golden sword. Then, he controlled the golden sword to fly, and his speed instantly increased by 3 times. Swoosh! The golden sword streaked across the sky, leaving a long golden flame trail behind. In the blink of an eye, Tu Ren and Zhou Shuai were left far behind. Although they had the strength of the soul refinement realm, they had not mastered the ability to teleport. Naturally, they could not catch up to Ji Tianxing. No matter how angry and indignant they were, they had no choice but to give up after chasing for 15 minutes. They had no choice. Ji Tianxing had already left on his sword Kinesis sword and disappeared into the horizon. They could not even see Ji Tianxing's shadow, so how could they chase after him? Damn bastard. The next time we meet, Ben Shuai will not give you the chance to escape. Ji Tianxing. Ben Shuai will remember this grudge. One day, Ben Shuai will tear you into pieces. Tu Ren and Zhou Shuai stopped in the sky and looked in the direction Ji Tianxing had escaped, roaring in anger. Ji Tianxing controlled the golden sword and flew for 400 to 500 miles before finally letting out a sigh of relief. Using the sword Kinesis sword to fly consumed too much energy. The golden light of the sword embryo had become much dimmer. He quickly put the golden sword back into his body and called out Qian Yu to carry him back to Central State City. He sat cross-legged on Qian Yu's back and gradually relaxed his mind. The previous battle and escape had consumed 60% of his true essence. Now, his body was exhausted and weak. He urgently needed to replenish his true essence. He took out 2 spirit pills from his space ring and swallowed them. He silently adjusted his breathing for a moment. Then he quickly entered the space of the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to check on his father, Ji Changkong's injuries. Ji Changkong lay quietly in the dark space, still unconscious. The blood on his robe had long dried up, but blood was still flowing out of his countless wounds. Such heavy injuries made Ji Tianxing's heart ache. He hated the 2 demon marshals to the extreme. Damned demon race. One day, I will exterminate all of you and let you die without a burial place. He angrily cursed in his heart. After calming down, he quickly used the Wood Emperor Umbrella's consummate skill. It released a soft and dense green light that enveloped Ji Changkong's body and healed his wounds. However, a strange scene occurred. The Wood Emperor Umbrella, which had excellent healing effects, actually had very little effect. The wounds on Ji Changkong's body were difficult to heal. Black and dirty blood was still flowing out of his wounds. Ji Tianxing carefully examined his wounds and discovered that the flesh and blood on his body were blackish purple. Wisps of black qi were also constantly emitting. It's over. Father has been corroded by demonic qi? Ji Tianxing was shocked. His expression became even more unsightly. He quickly released his spiritual sense and carefully examined Ji Changkong's injuries. After a quarter of an hour, he thoroughly examined Ji Changkong's body. He immediately frowned and his eyes flashed with intense anger. Ji Changkong's injuries were more serious than he had imagined. Not only was Ji Changkong's physical body severely injured, but his blood and bone marrow had also been corroded by demonic qi. Even his soul had been corroded. His soul force was extremely weak and could die at any time. Most importantly, Ji Tianxing also detected the aura of demonic goo in Ji Changkong's body. His expression changed drastically. His heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body was ice cold. This was because when he thought of the demonic goo, he naturally recalled Divine Master Blackfeather's words. Anyone who is implanted with the demonic goo will have their flesh, blood, and soul devoured by the demonic goo. At most, they will die within a month. Even if the demonic goo is forcefully removed from their body, they will die within 3 days. When he thought of this, Ji Tianxing's heart convulsed painfully. He was almost blinded by anger. The Demon Emperor, I, Ji Tianxing, am irreconcilable with you. In this life, I, Ji Tianxing, will do everything in my power. Even if I have to pay with my life, I will kill you. I will destroy all the demons in the world. Originally, when Ji Changkong received the marriage certificate from Ji Tianxing, he was filled with joy and gratification. He excitedly rushed to Zhongzhou to discuss the wedding date with Cloud's Soul Palace. However, something like this had happened on the way. Now, Ji Changkong was seriously injured and was on the verge of death. He was even infected with the demonic goo. His death was certain. Even a soul-tempering expert could not cure it. His father had worked hard for so many years and was about to enjoy the rest of his life. However, he had met with this unexpected disaster and was about to lose his life. How could Ji Tianxing not be furious? Chapter 8:20. Ji Tianxing tried his best to think of a way to save his father, Ji Changkong. After his anger, he calmed down. Therefore, he took out all the elixirs he could and borrowed the power of the seal of mountains and rivers to keep his father alive. Then he left the space of the seal of mountains and rivers, put Qian Yu back into the 100 treasures brocade pouch, and flew on his sword again. In order to save his father as soon as possible, he did not care that flying on his sword would consume a lot of energy. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was, no matter what, he had to save his father. He did not rush back to Zhongzhou City, but changed direction and rushed to Cloud's Soul Palace. With his ability, he could not save his father. The only person who could save his father was his master, Miracle Dr. Bailey. In order to fight for that glimmer of hope, Ji Tianxing did not care about his exhaustion and the rapid loss of energy, and rushed to Cloud's Soul Palace. Fortunately, there were no more twists and turns on the way. After 20 hours, Ji Tianxing flew on his sword and arrived at Cloud's Soul Palace. It was early in the morning, and Cloud's Soul Palace was shrouded in a sea of clouds. It was silent, and the lights were shining. When Ji Tianxing descended from the sky and landed on the square outside Cloud's Soul Palace, his face was pale, and his aura was extremely weak. His legs went soft, and his vision turned black. He almost fell to the ground. There was no other way. In order to get to Cloud's Soul Palace as quickly as possible, he had almost used up all his energy. Now, he was so tired that he almost vomited blood. He just wanted to lie on the ground and sleep. But he could not rest yet. He staggered and ran, gritting his teeth as he rushed through the square and toward Cloud's Soul Palace's gate. The guards on both sides of the green jade steps were shocked when they saw him in such a sorry state. They almost didn't recognize him. Fortunately, a guard captain hurriedly came up to him and respectfully extended his hand to support him. Ji Tianxing did not waste time. He shouted in a hoarse and dry voice, "Bring me to see Miracle Dr. Bailey." The guard captain was very quick-witted. He quickly ordered a few guards to report to Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi. He personally brought Ji Tianxing into Cloud's spirit palace and waited in the meeting hall. Ji Tianxing sat limply in the hall, gasping for breath. He quickly took out a spirit pill and swallowed it, restoring his true essence. In a short span of 100 breaths, Yun Zhongqi and Divine Dr. Bailey rushed over upon hearing the news. Seeing Ji Tianxing's disheveled hair and blood-stained white robe, the two of them felt their hearts skip a beat. They were filled with worry and concern. Tianxing, what's wrong with you? Tianxing, what's going on? Why are you in such a sorry state? Ji Tianxing didn't have time to recover his true qi and quickly explained the cause and process of the matter to the two in a concise manner. What? Your father was kidnapped by 2 demon marshals on his way to the central continent? Your father is seriously injured and on the verge of death. He was even implanted with a demonic goo. Yun Zhongqi and Divine Dr. Bailey's expressions changed. Their eyes were filled with anger and worry. The two of them didn't waste any more time. They quickly brought Ji Tianxing into a luxurious cultivation room. The cultivation room was spacious and filled with heaven and earth spirit qi. It even condensed into a pool of spirit qi. Ji Tianxing took his father out of the seal of mountains and rivers and placed him on the frost jade bed. Divine Dr. Bailey quickly used a secret medical technique to carefully examine Ji Changkong's injuries. Ji Tianxing and Yun Zhongqi stood to the side, looking at Ji Changkong with concern. They were waiting for Divine Dr. Bailey's results. After 100 breaths, Divine Dr. Bailey finished casting the technique and withdrew his hands. He sighed with a grave expression. Just as Tianxing said, his father's injuries are too serious. His life is hanging by a thread. Moreover, his father was implanted with a demonic goo. His flesh and soul have been corroded. His soul is like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. Yun Zhongqi frowned. He stared at the unconscious Ji Changkong, who was covered in blood. He sighed in his heart. I didn't expect my first meeting with my in-law to be like this. I wonder how much pain Tianxing must be feeling right now. Looking at his exhausted and battered appearance, he must have risked his life to come here and ask for help. Damn demons! Ji Tianxing looked at Divine Dr. Bailey with burning eyes. He asked in a low voice, Master, can you save my father? Divine Dr. Bailey nodded. However, he immediately shook his head and said in a grave tone, Tianxing, although your father's injuries are very serious and he has been corroded by the demonic qi, his life is hanging by a thread. However, I can treat all of these injuries, so I can definitely heal his physical injuries and make a full recovery. However, the real problem is the demonic goo. Your father's soul is almost shattered. Even I don't have much confidence. Ji Tianxing knew that anger and despair were useless. Now he had completely calmed down. He nodded and bowed to Divine Dr. Bailey. He said in a serious tone, No matter what, I ask for your help, Master. We can talk about the demonic goo and soul injuries later. You should first treat my father's physical injuries and get rid of the demonic qi. All right, leave it to me. Divine Dr. Bailey nodded in agreement. He reminded Ji Tianxing, I can see that your strength is almost exhausted and your vitality is greatly damaged. Quickly go to the spiritual pool and meditate to recover. If this drags on for too long, it will affect your martial arts foundation. Ji Tianxing believed in Divine Dr. Bailey's medical skills. He did not say anything else. He turned around and entered the spiritual pool. He meditated and adjusted his breathing to recover his strength. Divine Dr. Bailey also began to use his medical skills to remove the demonic qi for Ji Changkong. Time passed silently. The secret room was quiet. The atmosphere was heavy and stifling. Yun Zhongqi did not leave. He stood at the side and waited silently. Unknowingly, 6 hours had passed. It was already the morning of the second day. The sky outside was slightly bright. Divine Dr. Bailey finally removed the demonic qi from Ji Changkong's body and began to treat his physical injuries. Ji Tianxing was still meditating in the spiritual pool. His strength was also quickly recovering. Finally, Another 6 hours passed, and it was noon. Divine Dr. Bailey used a few medical skills and consumed a few supreme-grade spirit pills. Finally, he healed more than half of Ji Changkong's physical injuries. The hideous wounds on Ji Changkong's body healed, leaving behind many centipede-like scars. These injuries still needed half a month of recuperation before they could be completely healed. What was left was the demonic goo in his body and the injuries of his soul on the verge of shattering. This was the most difficult to treat. Even Divine Dr. Bailey found it troublesome. Divine Dr. Bailey woke up Ji Tianxing, who was still meditating in the spiritual pool. He wanted to discuss something with him. Tianxing, the demonic goo in your father's body must be removed as soon as possible. The demonic goo is rapidly devouring his flesh and soul. Not only will it worsen the injuries of his soul, it will also completely devour his soul and destroy it forever. If his soul is destroyed, there is still a trace of hope to save him. If his soul is completely destroyed, even the gods will not be able to save him. Chapter 8:21. Divine Dr. Bailey's tone was very solemn. Ji Tianxing also understood that the demonic goo in his father's body must be removed. Otherwise, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. But once the demonic goo is removed, my father will die within 3 days. He stared at Divine Dr. Bailey with eyes full of anxiety. Divine Dr. Bailey shook his head and comforted him with a firm tone. Don't be afraid. I'll do my best to maintain his soul energy and won't let him die so quickly. Of course, I'm only explaining the situation to you. In the end, you still have to make the final decision. Ji Tianxing was silent. He was hesitating, weighing the pros and cons. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind as his heart suffered great torment. At this moment, the unconscious Ji Changkong suddenly let out a muffled groan. It was probably because his physical injuries had mostly healed and the demonic qi that invaded his body had been dispelled. He actually slowly woke up. Ji Tianxing was immediately delighted. He quickly turned to look at Ji Changkong and bent over to check the situation. Ji Changkong slowly opened his eyes and stared fixedly at him. Ji Tianxing anxiously asked, "Father, you're finally awake?" However, Ji Changkong stared at him with wide eyes and did not say anything. Suddenly, Ji Changkong stretched out his hands at lightning speed and frantically grabbed at him. He even let out a wild beast-like howl. Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment and almost had his neck strangled by Ji Changkong. Fortunately, he managed to dodge in time and quickly took 3 steps back. At this moment, he discovered that Ji Changkong's eyes were actually blood-red. His pupils seemed to be burning with blood-red flames as if he had gone mad. Ji Changkong's skin was as red as fire as he howled like a mad demon. He actually jumped up from the ice jade bed and pounced at Ji Tianxing while waving his arms. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing was sorrowful and his eyes turned red. Of course, he could see that his father had lost his mind because of the demonic goo. He was like those descendants of wealthy families who had been infected by the demonic goo and had turned into a mad demon who willfully slaughtered the innocent. His father had always been a kind and gentle person. He had devoted his entire life to nurturing him and protecting him at all costs. A father's love was like a mountain, and his kindness was as great as the sky. But now, his father's intelligence had been devoured by the demonic goo, and he had actually become like this. They were all damned demonic goo. Ji Tianxing was filled with grief and indignation, but he had no choice but to restrain his father. He raised his right hand and slapped his father's back. Shwa! A black vortex appeared on his right palm. It was the mysterious black hole. The black hole released a powerful suction force that invaded Ji Changkong's body. He said to him, "Tianxing, I can only do my best to extend your father's life and let him live for a few more days. During this period of time, I still need to look through ancient books and documents to see if I can find a way to reconstruct his 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls and resolve the demonic goo. Leave your father to us for the time being. You should quickly recuperate and recover your strength. The more difficult it is, the stronger you must be. You must not fall." Yun Zhongqi also hurriedly comforted Ji Tianqing. He and Miracle Dr. Bailey were both spirit refinement realm experts. With them looking after Ji Tianqing could rest assured. Thus, he returned to the spiritual liquid pool and continued to meditate to recover his strength as soon as possible. Time quietly passed. Unknowingly, 2 days had passed. Ji Tianqing's strength had completely recovered. He had returned to his peak state. He did not leave the secret room. He had been guarding beside the iced jade bed. His heart was filled with worry and anxiety. Ji Changkong was still unconscious. His aura was as weak as ever. Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi had to take turns using secret techniques every day to extend Ji Changkong's life and prevent his 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls from dissipating. Not only that, Cloud Soul Palace had to take out a few soul-level pills every day to help Ji Changkong stabilize his soul. Soul-level pills could only be refined by spirit refinement realm experts. Furthermore, refining pills required the consumption of spirit energy. It would take months to years. Thus, every soul-level pill was incomparably precious. They were truly priceless treasures that could not be bought with money. Only a top force like Cloud Soul Palace could take out 5 to 6 soul-level pills every day to maintain Ji Changkong's life. However, Cloud Soul Palace did not have many soul-level pills in storage. At most, they could last for another 7 to 8 days before they ran out of pills. That night, Yun Yao rushed back to Cloud Soul Palace from the Monarch Palace. She had already received news that Ji Changkong was severely injured and was about to die. Thus, she rushed back to Cloud Soul Palace to visit him. After returning to Cloud Soul Palace, she went straight to the secret room to find Ji Tianqing. She asked him about Ji Changkong's situation with concern. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.